You have been giving your peace away every time you let your thoughts obey emotion instead of reason. You sit with your phone, your work, your relationships, and still feel a quiet unrest because your judgments have been ruling you without examination. No person can secure your inner life if you refuse to govern it yourself. Happiness does not live in approval, success, or perfect circumstances. It lives in the daily discipline of choosing virtue over impulse and separating what you control from what you do not. If you are ready to stop reacting and start thinking clearly, stay with this. Subscribe and join this space where Stoic truth is spoken plainly, without noise, without comfort, only the work of building a mind that cannot be easily disturbed. Number 1. Accept only what lies within your complete control today. Listen closely. Your suffering has not come from life alone. It has come from the way you keep reaching for what is not yours to command. You have spent too much of your mind on other people's words, their moods, their choices, their praise, their silence, and their refusal. You have tried to build peace on things that can leave you at any moment. That is why you feel tired. That is why your mind keeps moving in circles. That is why the same pain returns under a new name. A person cannot be free while begging reality to obey him. A person cannot be calm while handing his happiness to what he cannot rule. So begin here and do not lie to yourself. There are things in your life that belong to you, and there are things that never did. Your judgment belongs to you. Your choice belongs to you. Your intention belongs to you. Your character belongs to you. Everything else does not. This is the first truth you must accept if you want inner happiness, not shallow comfort, not the temporary relief that comes from being admired or distracted or spared. Inner happiness, the kind that remains when your plans fail and your pride is wounded and other people do not act as you hoped. The kind that does not collapse when the world becomes difficult. The kind that does not need the world to be gentle before it can be steady. This happiness is not found in control over events. It is found in control over the self. A man does not become strong by forcing life to bend. He becomes strong by refusing to let the mind bend toward fear whenever life refuses him. You keep asking for peace while refusing discipline. You keep asking for clarity while feeding confusion. You keep asking for strength while surrendering your mind to every impulse that appears. You react before you reflect. You speak before you judge. You desire before you examine. You blame before you own. Then you wonder why life feels scattered. It is scattered because you are scattered. The cure is not outside you. The cure begins when you decide that nothing external will be allowed to govern your soul. That is the start of freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want. That kind of freedom is only another form of slavery. The true freedom is this. You can choose your response. You can choose your judgment. You can choose whether a thing will wound your character or merely test it. When an event happens, your first task is not to call it good or bad. Your first task is to see it clearly. Most people never do that. They receive an event and immediately wrap it in panic. They see delay and call it ruin. They see criticism and call it disrespect. They see rejection and call it humiliation. They see discomfort and call it danger. They see uncertainty and call it disaster. But the event itself is often not the problem. The problem is the judgment. The mind rushes ahead and declares a verdict before reason has examined the facts. That verdict then creates suffering that the event itself did not require. This is why you must train your mind to pause. The pause is not weakness. The pause is the beginning of mastery. In that moment before reaction, you prove whether you are ruled by impression or by reason. You do not need to control what another person thinks of you. You do not need to control whether they understand you. You do not need to control whether they stay. You do not need to control whether your work is praised immediately. You do not need to control whether the day unfolds without friction. All of this is outside your power. To demand control here is to demand what no human being was ever given. But you can control whether you speak with honesty. You can control whether you act with justice. You can control whether you remain patient. You can control whether you waste your energy in complaint or use it in discipline. These things are yours. These are enough. A free mind stops begging for more than it can truly own. The man who suffers most is often the man who has never learned the difference between what is up to him and what is not. He tries to manage the weather of the world and then wonders why he is exhausted. He tries to make other people predictable and then grows bitter when they are not. He tries to make success arrive on schedule and then becomes angry when life does not obey his clock. He tries to make the body never ache and the mind never tremble and the future never threaten him. But a human life was never promised that kind of ease. What was promised is the chance to meet difficulty with character. That is enough for a noble life. That is enough for a good life. That is enough for inner happiness. So when the mind begins to panic, ask one question. Is this mine to govern or not? If it is not yours, let it go. If it is yours, then govern it now. Do not linger in confusion. Do not indulge the habit of thinking that every feeling is a command. Feeling is not proof. Fear is not truth. Anger is not wisdom. Desire is not permission. Every impression that enters the mind must be tested. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it within my power? Does it help me act with virtue? If not, then do not feed it. Starving the wrong thought is part of training the soul. Start your day with this examination. Before you reach for your phone or let the world enter your mind, sit still and name what belongs to you today. Your choices belong to you. Your tone belongs to you. Your effort belongs to you. Your restraint belongs to you. Your willingness to tell the truth belongs to you. Your patience belongs to you. Everything else is uncertain. Then ask yourself how you will meet the day if things go against your wishes. Do not wait for trouble to teach you. Prepare before trouble arrives. A mind that prepares in calm will not collapse as easily in pressure. This is not pessimism. This is discipline. The untrained soul dreams that life will remain comfortable. The trained soul knows life will test it and prepares to answer well. There is another error you must abandon. You think happiness comes when nothing disturbs you. That is not so. Happiness comes when nothing can force you to betray your own principles. You may be disturbed, you may be disappointed, you may be challenged, you may be misunderstood, but if you remain just, if you remain self-controlled, if you remain honest and brave and reasonable, then no external event has conquered you. The man who keeps his virtue intact has not lost even when he loses everything else. That is not a comforting story. That is a serious truth. It asks more of you than comfort does. It asks you to become a person who can be deprived without becoming corrupt. Look at the places where you give away your inner rule. You give it away when you chase approval. You give it away when you stay silent to avoid disfavor. You give it away when you let fear decide for you. You give it away when you make your self-respect depend on being chosen. You give it away when you act only because others are watching. You give it away when you become what others reward instead of what reason demands. This is not dignity, this is surrender. The person who needs applause to behave well is not free. He is renting his conscience from the crowd. Do not do that. Decide who you are when no one is clapping. Decide what is right before the moment asks you to prove it. There will be times when the world is unfair. There will be times when your effort is ignored. There will be times when your honesty costs you. There will be times when another person wrongs you and never admits it. These moments are not an argument against Stoic life. They are the place where Stoic life becomes necessary. Do not ask why the world is unjust, as if that discovery should surprise you. Ask instead how you will remain just within an unjust world. That is the real work. You do not control the conduct of others. You control whether you join them in corruption. You do not control whether the world gives you credit. You control whether you deserve it. You do not control whether people misunderstand your character. You control whether your actions quietly reveal it over time. Inner happiness grows when you stop demanding that life justify itself to your preferences. Life will not ask your permission before it changes. It will not wait for your readiness before it presents difficulty. It will not protect your pride. It will not preserve your plans. It will not arrange itself around your convenience. Why should it? You were not placed here to be served by the world. You were placed here to meet it with reason. This means you must become less fragile. Not cold, not numb. Strong. A strong mind is not one that feels nothing. It is one that feels without surrendering its judgment. It receives the impression and then answers it with wisdom. When pain comes, do not immediately say, "This should not be happening." That thought is childish. The wise mind says, "This is happening, and now I must answer well." When embarrassment comes, do not collapse into self-pity. That weakness wastes time and keeps you tied to the opinions of others. Say, "This is discomfort, and I will not let it turn me inward against myself." When loss comes, do not pretend that grief is not human. Feel it honestly, but do not let it become a denial of reason. Even in grief you can remain upright. Even in grief you can act with dignity. Even in grief you can refuse bitterness. The Stoic life is not a life without feeling. It is a life where feeling no longer rules judgment. You must also discipline desire. Much of your suffering comes from wanting what you have not earned and fearing what you cannot avoid. You want life to entertain you. You want people to satisfy you. You want events to confirm you. You want comfort without effort. Yet every desire that stretches beyond virtue enslaves you. A desire becomes a chain when it tells you that happiness depends on outer conditions. Cut that chain. Desire what is noble. Desire a clean judgment. Desire just action. Desire patience in difficulty. Desire courage in truth. Desire restraint where impulse tempts you. These are wants that strengthen you instead of weakening you. They cannot be taken from you unless you give them away. Do not confuse pleasure with peace. Pleasure comes and goes. Peace is the settled condition of a disciplined mind. Pleasure asks nothing of your character. Peace demands everything good in you. That is why peace is harder to keep and far more valuable. Many people spend their lives chasing stimulation because silence exposes them to themselves. They fill every empty moment with noise because they have not learned how to meet their own thoughts. But the mind that can sit quietly with itself without panic has begun to become free. In silence you see your impulses as they are. You see your excuses. You see your fear. You see your vanity. You see how often you act not from principle but from craving. That sight is painful at first. It is also necessary. If you want inner happiness, then examine your judgments daily, not once in a while, daily. Ask what disturbed you and why. Ask whether your response served reason or impulse. Ask whether you made yourself smaller by surrendering to emotion. Ask whether you placed too much value on what others think. Ask whether you treated a minor inconvenience as a great injury. Ask whether you could have answered with more patience, more honesty, more self-command. An unexamined day becomes a wasted day. Most people move from morning to night without truly seeing themselves. They collect impressions like dust and never clean the mind. Then they wonder why the inner room feels heavy. Evening examination clears that room. It tells the truth while the day is still fresh enough to learn from. At night, revisit the day without excuse. Where did you act well? Where did you fall short? Where did you speak with justice? Where did you speak from irritation? Where did you hold your ground? Where did you retreat into comfort? Did you meet difficulty with composure or with complaint? Did you let one angry moment govern the rest of the day? Did you use your power of choice wisely or waste it? Do not perform this review to punish yourself. Perform it to become fit for tomorrow. A man improves not by hoping vaguely that tomorrow will be better, but by seeing clearly where today failed and correcting the error. The soul becomes steady through honest repetition. You must practice voluntary discomfort. If you never endure small hardship willingly, you will be weak when hardship comes unwillingly. Cold water, simple food, a postponed pleasure. A harder task completed without complaint. A walk without entertainment. A period of silence. A refusal to seek ease at every turn. These small trainings teach the body that it is not master and teach the mind that discomfort is not danger. The person who only knows comfort becomes frightened by the slightest loss of it. The person who trains in restraint becomes difficult to shake. He does not fear the loss of luxury because he never made luxury his ruler. He remains ready, he remains clear, he remains himself. This is how you become less dependent on others. Not by hardening yourself against human connection, not by pretending you need no one in any practical sense. You are a social being and must act justly with others, but you do not need others to complete your character. You do not need them to certify your worth. You do not need them to grant your peace. You do not need them to make your choices noble. The work of virtue is inward even when its effects are outward. A good person serves others not because he is starving for approval, but because reason tells him to be just. That is a clean life. That is a strong life. That is a life that can stand alone without becoming selfish and can live among others without becoming dependent. The crowd will always have an opinion. It will praise one day and condemn the next. It will call restraint weak and indulgence strong. It will admire what is loud and overlook what is sound. Do not let your mind become a servant of shifting voices. Stand with reason even if it stands alone. A good judgment does not become false because it is unpopular. A bad judgment does not become true because many people repeat it. The discipline you need is not to win every argument but to remain faithful to what is right. That is where self-respect comes from. Not from being seen as strong, but from actually being strong in the inner sense. What is the inner sense? It is this. You know how to govern your mind when it is tempted. You know how to hold your tongue when words would make you feel powerful for a moment. You know how to bear frustration without poisoning the whole day. You know how to see another person fairly even when they do not treat you fairly. You know how to accept that some losses cannot be reversed. You know how to continue with dignity when the outcome is not in your favor. That is inner strength. It is not theatrical. It is not loud. It is not dependent on an audience. It is steady in the face of change because it has placed its trust in what cannot be stolen from the soul. The undisciplined mind always says later. Later I will change. Later I will be calm. Later I will stop reacting. Later I will be serious. Later I will take myself in hand. But later is how the soul is delayed until it grows old in weakness. The time for action is not some perfect future when conditions become easier. The time is now. Today is the only place where choice exists. Today is where you either train yourself or neglect yourself. Today is where you either strengthen your reason or surrender it. Do not ask for a better mood before you act. Act and let the mood follow. Do not ask for certainty before you choose the good. Choose the good while uncertainty remains. That is how courage lives. When you are insulted, do not hand your mind over to anger. Ask what part of the insult is true. Correct what is true. Ignore what is false. If the insult is mere noise, then why should it disturb you? Why should another person's disorder become your own? If someone points out a fault in you, then take the fault seriously and the tone lightly. If someone lies about you, then remember that lies do not injure the soul unless you allow them to. Your character is not made by rumor. Your character is made by conduct. Live in such a way that slander loses its force because the truth is stronger than noise. When you fear failure, remember that failure does not destroy virtue. You may fail at a task and still remain honest. You may fall short and still remain disciplined. You may lose a result and still keep your character intact. That is why fear of failure should not rule your life. What you should fear is becoming dishonest in the effort to avoid failure. What you should fear is letting desperation make you crooked. What you should fear is trading your principles for comfort. The person who avoids all risk may preserve his image for a while, but he weakens his soul. Better to meet difficulty with good conduct than to escape difficulty by becoming less than you should be. Ask yourself what you really want from life. If you answer honestly, you may find that you do not want virtue enough. You want ease, you want admiration, you want control over others, you want to be exempt from pain, you want life to reward you before you have proven yourself. That is not a serious wish, it is a childish one. A serious wish is to become a person who remains good under pressure. A serious wish is to make the mind stable. A serious wish is to live in agreement with reason. A serious wish is to have no need for the approval of the foolish and no fear of the judgments of the unstable. When your aim becomes this clear, then your life becomes simpler. You stop chasing shadows and begin building character. You do not need to own the room to own yourself. You do not need to be the loudest voice to be the most rational one. You do not need to be admired to be honorable. You do not need to be understood by everyone to be at peace. These are hard truths because they strip away fantasy. They also free you. Fantasy keeps you always waiting for some outer event to finish your life for you. Truth tells you that your life begins wherever your judgment begins. The moment you decide to meet reality without excuses, your life becomes your own. There is no secret happiness hidden in the approval of others. There is only dependence there. There is no lasting peace hidden in the next achievement. There is only another demand. There is no final security in possessions because possessions can be lost. There is no final security in reputation because reputation can shift. There is no final security in the body because the body is mortal. So where will you place your trust? Place it in the one thing that can remain upright under every change, your power to choose the good. Place it in reason. Place it in virtue. Place it in the habit of responding rightly, whether the day is easy or brutal. This is not a small thing. It is the whole matter. A life governed by reason is not a life without emotion. It is a life where emotion has been put in its proper place. It does not command, it does not distort, it does not drag the mind into false judgments. You may feel disappointment and still act wisely. You may feel anger and still speak justly. You may feel fear and still do what is right. This is the discipline of the human being who has begun to wake up. He no longer says, because I feel this, therefore I must obey it. He says, I feel this and I will examine it. If it serves virtue, I will follow it. If it does not, I will let it pass. That simple distinction can change a life. Do not neglect the little moments. The way you answer a message, the way you wait in traffic, the way you handle being overlooked, the way you react when plans change, the way you think in the minutes before sleep. These moments are not small. They reveal who is in charge. A man may speak grandly about self-control and yet be unable to endure a delay without irritation. He may speak of wisdom and yet collapse at minor inconvenience. He may speak of strength and yet need constant praise. Do not be that man. Become a person whose philosophy is visible in ordinary hours. That is where character lives, not in speeches, in habits. If you are waiting for life to feel easier before you take yourself seriously, then you will wait forever. Life is not arranged to protect your comfort. It is arranged to reveal your character. Every disappointment reveals attachment. Every delay reveals impatience. Every insult reveals vanity. Every loss reveals what you treated as essential. This is useful if you are willing to learn. Nothing is wasted if you use it to strengthen the soul. The same event that breaks one person can train another. The difference is not the event. The difference is the judgment. So stop asking for a life without friction. Ask for a mind that becomes better through friction. Stop asking for people to behave exactly as you wish. Ask yourself to behave as reason requires. Stop asking for events to match your preferences. Ask yourself to meet events with dignity. This is the foundation of inner happiness, not escape, not fantasy, not pleasure, governance, self-rule, clear judgment, unshakable virtue, a mind that knows what is its own and what is not, and refuses to confuse the two. When you lose something, do not rush to declare your life ruined. You still have your reason, you still have your will, you still have the chance to act well. If you keep these, nothing essential is lost. If you abandon these, no amount of gain can save you. That is why the greatest danger in life is not hardship. It is becoming the kind of person hardship can easily corrupt. Guard your inner life with seriousness, not with tension, with seriousness. There is a difference. Tension is fear. Seriousness is clarity. Tension exhausts. Seriousness steadies. Seriousness says, I know what matters and I will not waste myself on what does not. Remember that you are mortal. Do not use that truth to become gloomy. Use it to become exact. Your time is not endless. Your energy is not endless. Your chance to live nobly is here and then gone. Why then spend so much of your limited life on anger that does nothing? Why spend it on envy that weakens you? Why spend it on the hope that others will finally make you feel complete? Why spend it on worrying over things that were never under your command? Use your time to practice. Use it to refine judgment. Use it to become just. Use it to become steady. Use it to become the sort of person who can face the end of a day without shame. A person who accepts only what lies within his control has already begun to become free. He no longer collides with reality as if reality was supposed to serve him. He works with reality. He responds rather than resists. He acts rather than complains. He observes rather than panics. He chooses rather than drifts. That is the life you have been avoiding because it requires honesty. But honesty is not punishment. Honesty is the beginning of peace. When you stop pretending that the world can be mastered by desire alone, you finally have room to build something real. So today do this. When a thought arrives, ask whether it is yours to govern. When a desire rises, ask whether it serves virtue. When an emotion surges, ask whether it is leading you toward reason or away from it. When a person disappoints you, ask whether your peace was ever rightly placed in their hands. When the day becomes difficult, ask what courage looks like now. Then do that. Do not wait for motivation. Do not wait for perfect calm. Do not wait for the world to become simpler. The world will remain the world. Your task is to become fit for it. And if you fail today, do not turn failure into a second failure by surrendering to shame. Learn, correct, return. That return is sacred. It is the work of a mind that refuses to be owned by one mistake. The disciplined person does not pretend he never falls. He rises faster because he has taught himself where to stand. This is how character is built. Not in one great moment, but in repeated returns to reason. There is nothing more urgent than learning to govern your own mind, because the mind you leave untended will rule you with cruelty. It will magnify small slights into great injuries. It will turn temporary discomfort into despair. It will make your life a courtroom where every event is prosecuted against your peace. Do not let that happen. Take back your attention. Take back your judgment. Take back your right to choose your response. That is where your freedom begins. You do not need the whole world to approve of you. You do not need every path to be easy. You do not need a perfect life to be a good one. You need a clear mind. You need a trained will. You need a heart that honors reason above impulse and virtue above comfort. That is enough. It has always been enough. The person who understands this can walk through uncertainty without losing himself. He can lose what is external and remain rich in what is essential. He can stand alone without becoming empty because his company is not built on need but on character. So let the false life end here. Let the life of reaction end here. Let the life of blame end here. Let the life of dependence on applause end here. What remains is the harder and better path. Accept what you cannot control. Govern what you can. Examine your judgments. Discipline your desires. Train your attention. Practice courage in discomfort. Keep faith with virtue. Do this daily and you will discover a kind of happiness that does not beg the world to be different. It asks only that you become worthy of yourself. That is the secret you were seeking. Not escape from life, mastery within it. Not possession of everything, possession of yourself. When you have that, you will need far less from others, and you will finally be able to stand in the truth without fear. And once you stand there long enough, you will see that peace was never hiding far away. It was waiting for you to stop surrendering your life to what was never yours to command. Number 2. Govern your thoughts before they govern your entire life. Your life does not follow your intentions as much as it follows your thoughts. You may sincerely wish to become calm, disciplined, and wise, yet if your mind continues to accept every passing impression without examination, your days will still be ruled by confusion. A single careless thought can become a careless word. A careless word can become a damaged relationship. A damaged relationship can become years of regret. The beginning was not the event. The beginning was the thought that entered your mind without being questioned. This is where your work begins, not with changing the world, not with changing another person, not with waiting for better circumstances. Your work begins with the silent activity taking place inside you from the moment you wake until the moment you close your eyes at night. Your thoughts are constantly presenting judgments about what is happening, what should happen, and what other people ought to be. If you never examine these judgments, they quietly become the architects of your character. Many people believe they are reacting to reality. They are not. They are reacting to the story their own mind created about reality. The difference is greater than most people ever realize. A delayed reply becomes proof of rejection. A difficult conversation becomes evidence that everything is falling apart. One mistake becomes a declaration of personal failure. The mind rushes to conclusions because it has never been trained to wait for reason. An untrained mind values speed over truth. A disciplined mind values truth before every conclusion. You must understand that your first thought is not always your best thought. It is often only your oldest habit speaking. It is the result of years spent reacting instead of examining. If you immediately believe everything that appears in your mind, you become a servant to habits you never consciously chose. The greatest danger is not that difficult thoughts appear. The danger is believing they deserve obedience simply because they appeared. There is a quiet space between what happens and the judgment you place upon it. Most people never notice this space because they have filled it with impulse. Yet this small interval is where your freedom lives. In that brief moment you possess the ability to ask whether your first impression deserves your agreement. That question alone separates a governed mind from a wandering one. Imagine someone speaks harshly to you. Your mind immediately whispers that you have been insulted, disrespected, or diminished. Before those thoughts become anger, stop. Ask yourself whether another person's words have altered your character or only touched your pride. If your character remains intact, then nothing essential has been harmed. What has been challenged is your opinion of the event. This examination changes everything because it returns authority to reason instead of emotion. The same discipline applies when success arrives. Praise can be just as dangerous as criticism if your thinking becomes dependent upon it. The mind that celebrates approval without examination soon begins to fear its absence. Then every decision becomes an attempt to preserve admiration rather than preserve virtue. A person who measures himself through applause has surrendered his inner government without noticing it. Your thoughts are like visitors arriving throughout the day. Some deserve welcome, others deserve dismissal. Wisdom does not consist in preventing visitors from arriving. Wisdom consists in deciding who may remain. Many people open the door to every fearful imagination, every bitter memory, every jealous comparison, and every anxious prediction. Then they wonder why their inner life feels crowded and restless. The mind becomes peaceful only when it learns to refuse unnecessary guests. Notice how often your thinking leaves the present moment. It travels into conversations that have already ended. It invents arguments that have not yet happened. It revisits mistakes that cannot be undone. It rehearses disasters that may never exist. Hours disappear inside events that reality has never produced. Meanwhile, the present moment waits quietly for your attention. The only place where reason can act is the present. Every unnecessary journey beyond it weakens your ability to live well today. Your thinking deserves the same discipline that an athlete gives the body. No athlete expects strength without repetition. No musician expects mastery without practice. Yet many people expect wisdom while allowing every thought to pass without inspection. Excellence of character requires training no less demanding than excellence in any craft. The instrument you are training is your own judgment. Begin every morning before the demands of the day begin speaking for you. Sit quietly for several minutes. Do not seek pleasant feelings. Seek clear thinking. Ask yourself what kind of person you intend to be before circumstances begin testing you. Decide that honesty will guide your speech. Decide that patience will govern your reactions. Decide that fairness will shape your decisions. You cannot control every event that will appear today, but you can prepare the quality of mind with which you intend to meet them. As the day unfolds, keep returning to a single question whenever your emotions begin accelerating beyond reason. Ask yourself whether your judgment is helping you act with wisdom or merely feeding unnecessary disturbance. This question interrupts automatic thinking. It reminds you that every impression deserves examination before acceptance. A disciplined question is often more valuable than a quick answer. Complaint deserves particular attention because it disguises itself as honesty while quietly weakening the soul. Complaining teaches the mind that external events possess authority over inner peace. Each complaint repeated without examination strengthens the belief that your well-being depends upon circumstances behaving according to preference. A wiser response asks what useful action remains available instead of dwelling upon what cannot now be changed. Comparison creates another form of mental slavery. Your mind observes another person's possessions, achievements, appearance, or recognition, and immediately forms a judgment about your own worth. Yet none of these comparisons improve your character. They merely distract you from your own work. Another person's path has never prevented you from becoming more truthful, more disciplined, more courageous, or more just. Character does not become greater by surpassing another person. It becomes greater by governing yourself more completely than yesterday. Watch carefully how quickly your thoughts seek certainty where none exists. The future remains hidden, yet the mind insists upon predicting it. When uncertainty appears, imagination often produces the darkest possible conclusion. This habit exhausts the spirit because it demands emotional payment for events that may never occur. Instead of asking what terrible outcome might happen, Ask what honorable action remains available now. Action belongs to you. Prediction does not. You will discover that many of your strongest emotions begin with small, unnoticed assumptions. You assume another person's silence carries hostility. You assume delay means failure. You assume discomfort means you have chosen the wrong path. You assume criticism proves inadequacy. These assumptions become emotional burdens long before reality confirms them. Therefore, examine assumptions before they become convictions. The disciplined mind refuses to become dramatic. It does not enlarge inconveniences into disasters. It does not decorate ordinary difficulties with unnecessary suffering. It sees events according to their true size. A postponed meeting remains a postponed meeting. A mistake remains a mistake. A disagreement remains a disagreement. By refusing exaggeration, reason preserves energy for what genuinely deserves attention. There will be days when your thoughts resist this discipline. Old habits do not disappear because you have understood a principle once. They return repeatedly asking for permission to govern you again. Do not become discouraged by their return. Become stronger in your refusal. Every time you reject an irrational judgment, you weaken its influence. Every time you replace impulse with careful examination, you strengthen the authority of reason. You must also guard against the temptation to identify yourself with every thought you experience. A passing thought is not your identity. It is simply an impression requesting agreement. If anger appears, it does not mean you have become anger. If fear appears, it does not mean fear has become your master. What defines you is the judgment you choose after the thought arrives. Character is shaped by consent, not by appearance. Many people spend years attempting to improve external conditions while neglecting the quality of their own thinking. They move to different places, seek different careers, pursue different relationships, and acquire different possessions. Yet wherever they travel, they carry the same undisciplined mind with them. The scenery changes while the suffering remains familiar. No destination can compensate for neglected judgment. Your relationships also reflect the condition of your thoughts. If suspicion governs your thinking, trust becomes impossible. If pride governs your thinking, listening becomes difficult. If resentment governs your thinking, forgiveness becomes unreachable. Before asking why relationships fail, examine the judgments you bring into them each day. A peaceful relationship begins with a peaceful mind, not with perfect circumstances. Practice speaking more slowly than your emotions demand. Quick speech often reveals unexamined thinking. When you pause before answering, reason gains time to replace impulse. Silence used wisely is not hesitation, it is self-command. The disciplined person does not fear taking a moment to ensure that words serve virtue instead of vanity. As evening arrives, return once more to yourself. Sit quietly without distraction. Review the movements of your own mind throughout the day. Which thoughts deserved acceptance? Which thoughts quietly led you away from reason? Where did impatience replace understanding? Where did pride interrupt learning? Where did fear persuade you to abandon better judgment? This examination is not an exercise in guilt. It is an exercise in refinement. Gold becomes pure through repeated purification. Character becomes steady through repeated examination. You will gradually notice something remarkable. Events that once dominated your emotions begin losing their authority. Situations remain difficult, but they no longer command your inner life. Insults lose their power because your judgment has changed. Delays lose their sting because impatience no longer rules your expectations. Uncertainty becomes easier to bear because reason has learned to live without demanding guarantees. This transformation does not happen in a single morning. It grows through countless ordinary moments where you quietly choose examination instead of reaction. The world may never notice these victories, Others may never applaud them. Yet these invisible choices shape the strongest kind of freedom a human being can possess. A mind capable of governing itself cannot easily be conquered by fortune, criticism, temptation, or fear. Do not expect perfection from yourself. Expect vigilance. There will still be moments when irritation arrives before wisdom, when anxiety speaks loudly, or when pride attempts to disguise itself as certainty. The goal is not to eliminate every imperfect thought. The goal is to become so attentive that no thought gains authority without first passing before the judgment of reason. Every sunrise offers another opportunity to reclaim your inner government. Every difficult conversation offers another opportunity to practice disciplined judgment. Every disappointment offers another opportunity to distinguish reality from imagination. Every temptation offers another opportunity to strengthen character instead of appetite. Your greatest responsibility is not controlling the minds of others. It is refusing to neglect your own. The quality of your life will never rise above the quality of the thoughts you repeatedly approve. Govern them patiently. Govern them honestly. Govern them every day. For when reason becomes the ruler of your thinking, your actions become steadier, your relationships become cleaner, your choices become wiser, and your life gradually reflects the quiet strength of a person who can no longer be ruled by an undisciplined mind. Number 3. Reject desperate approval and strengthen your inner character daily. The desire to be accepted has quietly ruled more of your life than you have been willing to admit. It has spoken through choices that did not reflect your judgment. It has shaped conversations where you agreed with what you did not believe. It has persuaded you to remain silent when honesty required words and to speak when silence would have preserved dignity. It has led you to measure your worth through faces that change their opinions without warning. The deepest prison is not built from walls. It is built from the belief that your value depends upon another person's approval. Look carefully at how often your peace rises and falls according to the reactions of others. A compliment lifts your spirit beyond reason. A criticism unsettles your entire day. A kind message fills you with confidence. A delayed reply creates uncertainty. A moment of recognition convinces you that you matter. A moment of neglect causes you to question yourself. This is not stability, this is dependence. Any mind that places its contentment in the hands of changing people will never possess lasting tranquility because those hands were never meant to carry such a burden. The search for approval always promises security, yet it delivers the opposite. The more you depend upon praise, the more fearful you become of losing it. The more you shape yourself to satisfy every expectation, the further you travel from your own character. You begin adjusting your principles to fit each audience. Your words become careful performances instead of truthful expressions. Your decisions become calculations designed to avoid rejection rather than opportunities to practice virtue. In attempting to please everyone, you slowly abandon the only person whose respect you truly require. You must ask yourself a difficult question. Who is directing your conduct when no principle guides your choices? If the answer is public opinion, then your life no longer belongs to reason. It belongs to whatever voice happens to be loudest. Crowds celebrate one thing today and condemn the same thing tomorrow. Their judgments shift with fashion, emotion, and convenience. A wise person cannot build an inner life upon foundations that move with every passing season. Consider how many hours have been consumed by imagining what others think about you. How often has your mind rehearsed conversations that ended long ago? How many opportunities have you refused because failure might attract criticism? How many honest words have remained unspoken because acceptance seemed more valuable than integrity? None of this has strengthened your character. It has merely strengthened your attachment to opinions that remain forever outside your authority. Your character is not improved by admiration. It is improved by the repeated choice to act rightly regardless of admiration. Praise may accompany virtue, but it can never replace it. If applause becomes your reward, you will eventually sacrifice truth whenever truth threatens your popularity. Yet if virtue becomes your reward, then no loss of approval can impoverish you. Your wealth will rest within your own conduct, rather than within another person's judgment. Observe how quickly vanity disguises itself as kindness. You tell yourself you are avoiding conflict out of consideration for others. In reality, you may simply fear being disliked. You convince yourself that constant agreement preserves peace. In truth, it often preserves only comfort. There is a profound difference between treating people with justice and surrendering your convictions for acceptance. Justice serves reason. People-pleasing serves fear. The disciplined soul does not become harsh toward others. It becomes honest with itself. It understands that genuine respect cannot be earned through endless accommodation. A person who abandons principles for approval teaches others to value convenience more than character. Such respect is fragile because it depends upon continued performance. The moment you stop pleasing, the approval disappears, revealing that it was never rooted in virtue to begin with. Begin your mornings by reminding yourself that you will encounter differing opinions throughout the day. Some people will appreciate your efforts, others will misunderstand them. Some will welcome your honesty, others will resist it. None of these reactions determine whether your actions were guided by reason. Your responsibility is not to command responses. Your responsibility is to govern intentions. Enter each day prepared to meet approval and disapproval with equal steadiness. When you notice yourself seeking recognition, pause before acting. Ask a simple question. If no one witnessed this choice, would I still believe it to be right? That question removes the audience and leaves only your conscience. If the action remains worthy without spectators, continue. If its value depends entirely upon being seen, examine your motive before taking another step. Many people mistake visibility for significance. They believe that being noticed is evidence of living well, yet the quality of a life has never been measured by how many people observe it. Character grows most deeply in moments that no audience ever sees. It grows when you refuse dishonesty despite having every opportunity to benefit from it. It grows when patience replaces irritation although no one would have blamed your anger. It grows when discipline continues after admiration has disappeared. Notice also how approval influences your emotions. When someone agrees with you, confidence expands. When someone disagrees, doubt immediately appears. This reveals that your confidence has not been grounded in careful examination, but in borrowed certainty. True confidence does not arise because everyone supports your judgment. It arises because your judgment has been tested by reason with complete honesty. There is another danger hidden within the desire for approval. It gradually teaches you to neglect your own examination. Instead of asking whether your actions were just, you begin asking whether they were appreciated. Instead of asking whether your conduct reflected wisdom, you ask whether it received recognition. The standard quietly changes from virtue to popularity. Once this change occurs, your moral direction becomes uncertain because the crowd possesses no consistent measure of goodness. You strengthen your inner character by returning each decision to the question of what is right rather than what is rewarded. This discipline requires courage because right action sometimes attracts misunderstanding. There will be moments when integrity costs opportunities. There will be occasions when honesty creates temporary discomfort. There will be days when restraint appears weaker than retaliation. Yet none of these appearances alter the value of virtue. The worth of a good action does not depend upon immediate approval. Train yourself to become comfortable with being misunderstood when your conscience remains clear. This is not permission to become stubborn or dismissive of correction. Wisdom remains open to learning. If someone points out a genuine fault, receive it with gratitude and improve yourself. But if criticism merely reflects another person's preference rather than a failure of character, allow it to pass without disturbing your peace. You are responsible for your conduct, not for every opinion formed about it. Your daily discipline should include periods of deliberate solitude. Sit quietly without seeking distraction. During these moments, ask yourself whose approval has occupied your thinking. Have you shaped your actions according to principle or according to expectation? Have you allowed fear of rejection to silence honesty? Have you mistaken agreement for goodness? These questions uncover attachments that often remain hidden beneath busy routines. Throughout the day, practice doing small acts of virtue that no one is likely to notice. Complete your responsibilities with care even when recognition is absent. Speak truthfully even when exaggeration would attract admiration. Exercise patience where impatience would appear more impressive. These quiet actions strengthen the habit of serving virtue instead of appearance. Character matures through unseen consistency far more than through celebrated achievements. You will discover that many disappointments lose their force when approval is no longer your measure of success. A neglected effort no longer feels wasted if it was performed with excellence. An unnoticed kindness remains valuable because justice was practiced. Honest work retains its dignity even when applause never arrives. By changing the standard through which you evaluate your life, you free yourself from emotional dependence upon unpredictable responses. Do not confuse humility with self-neglect. Humility does not require diminishing your abilities to make others comfortable. Neither does it require pretending ignorance when knowledge can be useful. True humility simply refuses to build identity upon superiority or admiration. It allows your actions to speak while your mind remains devoted to continual improvement rather than continual recognition. Every encounter becomes an opportunity to practice this discipline. When praised, remind yourself that praise neither adds virtue nor removes vice. Accept kind words with gratitude, but do not feed your identity upon them. When criticized, examine whether correction is needed. If it is, improve yourself without resentment. If it is not, continue your work without bitterness. In both situations, your focus remains unchanged because your attention stays fixed upon character rather than reputation. You cannot prevent people from forming judgments. Their opinions belong to their own minds. Trying to manage every impression others hold of you is an endless labor that produces constant anxiety. The wiser path is simpler. Govern your intentions with precision and release concern for what never belonged to your authority. This separation restores enormous energy that was previously consumed by unnecessary worry. As evening approaches, conduct an honest review. Ask yourself whether you acted to preserve virtue or merely to preserve approval. Recall moments when fear influenced your speech. Notice opportunities where courage remained absent because acceptance seemed more valuable than truth. Do not condemn yourself for these discoveries. Use them as instructions for tomorrow. Every clear observation weakens self-deception and strengthens future discipline. There will be days when old habits return. You may catch yourself seeking admiration through achievement, appearance, or agreement. When this happens, do not become discouraged. Awareness itself marks progress. The important task is not pretending the temptation has disappeared. The important task is refusing to obey it once recognized. Each refusal strengthens your independence from external validation. Remember that your life is unfolding whether anyone notices it or not. Each sunrise offers another chance to cultivate justice, courage, moderation, and wisdom. None of these virtues require an audience. They require only a willing mind and consistent effort. The greatest victories often occur in silence where no praise interrupts the work of self-government. There is profound peace in no longer negotiating your principles for acceptance. Decisions become clearer because they are guided by reason instead of anxiety. Relationships become healthier because honesty replaces performance. Work becomes more meaningful because excellence is pursued for its own sake rather than for applause. Even solitude becomes less frightening because your own conscience provides companionship that approval never could. Strength of character grows slowly, much like a tree whose roots deepen beneath the surface before its branches expand. Others may not immediately recognize this growth. They may continue judging according to appearances. Let them. Your task is not to accelerate recognition. Your task is to continue strengthening what cannot be seen but supports everything that can. Whenever temptation urges you to seek approval at the expense of integrity, remember what is truly at stake. You are not merely deciding whether someone will like you. You are deciding whether your own character will remain faithful to reason. One path offers temporary acceptance purchased through compromise. The other offers lasting self-respect earned through virtue. Only one of these remains with you after every conversation has ended. Your inner character becomes your most reliable companion because it cannot be withdrawn by changing opinions. Wealth may disappear, reputation may fluctuate, positions may be lost, relationships may change. Yet a disciplined character accompanies you through every circumstance. It enables you to face uncertainty without surrendering dignity. It allows you to remain steady when admiration fades. It teaches you that peace grows from living in agreement with reason rather than living in pursuit of approval. Let each new day become another opportunity to strengthen this foundation. Rise with the intention to value truth above popularity, justice above convenience, moderation above impulse, and wisdom above appearance. Measure success not by how warmly you are received, but by how faithfully you preserved your principles. The more consistently you practice this discipline, the less authority external approval will hold over your emotions. Eventually, you will notice a quiet transformation within yourself. You will speak with greater sincerity because fear no longer edits every sentence. You will choose more carefully because your judgment no longer depends upon applause. You will walk through praise without becoming proud, and through criticism without becoming broken. You will discover that the respect worth possessing has never been granted by the crowd. It has always been earned within the silent court of your own conscience through the daily practice of virtuous action. That is the kind of strength no opinion can bestow and no opinion can take away. Number 4. Examine every judgment until reason replaces emotional reaction completely. Most people believe their greatest enemy is the difficult person standing before them, the unexpected setback that interrupted their plans, or the hardship that arrived without warning. Yet the true struggle begins much earlier. It begins in the instant your mind declares what an event means before reason has been given the chance to examine it. Long before your hands act or your words are spoken, your judgment has already chosen a direction. If that judgment is careless, your entire day begins to follow a path you never consciously intended. If that judgment is disciplined, even severe difficulty loses much of its power to disturb your character. This is why you must become a careful guardian of every judgment that enters your mind. You cannot prevent impressions from appearing. They arise naturally from what you see, hear, and experience, but you are never required to accept them immediately as truth. The greatest mistake of the undisciplined mind is believing that every first reaction deserves obedience. The first reaction is only an invitation. Wisdom begins when you decide whether to accept or reject it. Notice what happens when someone speaks in a way you dislike. Before you have examined the situation, your mind may already conclude that you have been insulted, dismissed, or treated unfairly. The emotion follows so quickly that it appears inseparable from the event itself. Yet there is a hidden step between the event and the emotion. That hidden step is judgment. Remove the careless judgment, and the emotional storm begins to lose its force. Preserve the careless judgment, and even a small inconvenience becomes a lasting disturbance. You have likely spent years strengthening this habit without realizing it. Every unexamined complaint has trained your mind to react faster than it reflects. Every assumption accepted without evidence has made emotional responses seem natural. Every time you allowed anger, fear, or resentment to speak before reason, you reinforced a pattern that gradually became your character. Habits of judgment are not created in dramatic moments. They are formed through ordinary repetitions that quietly shape the soul. Reason asks questions before reaching conclusions. Emotion often demands conclusions before asking questions. This difference determines whether you become the master of your inner life or its servant. When you refuse to examine your judgments, you surrender your freedom to whatever feeling arrives first. When you patiently investigate each impression, you begin reclaiming authority over yourself. There is no shame in experiencing emotion. The shame lies in allowing emotion to replace examination. A disciplined person does not pretend never to feel frustration, disappointment, or fear. Such expectations ignore human nature. The real work is refusing to let those feelings decide what is true. Feelings describe your immediate experience. They do not determine reality. Judgment belongs to reason alone. Imagine losing an opportunity you had hoped would change your future. The immediate impression may insist that your life has been permanently damaged, but before agreeing with that conclusion, ask yourself whether the event has truly diminished your character. Has it taken away your honesty? Has it removed your capacity for justice? Has it destroyed your ability to choose wisely? If these remain untouched, then what has truly been lost? Often the deepest pain comes not from the event, but from the exaggerated judgment attached to it. Every judgment deserves careful examination, because every judgment carries consequences. A careless judgment changes your speech. Altered speech influences your actions. Repeated actions become habits. Habits shape character. Character determines the direction of your entire life. This is why the smallest judgment deserves your full attention. Great errors often begin with tiny assumptions accepted without question. You may notice that your mind frequently labels experiences with unnecessary certainty. It declares that something is unbearable before endurance has even been tested. It calls a situation hopeless before every possibility has been considered. It announces failure before the work has been completed. These judgments are not observations. They are conclusions reached without sufficient examination. The disciplined mind refuses such haste. Practice slowing the movement of your thoughts whenever strong emotion appears. This pause is not weakness. It is one of the highest expressions of inner strength. During that pause, ask yourself what facts are actually present. Separate what has truly happened from what your imagination has added. Distinguish between reality and interpretation. This single practice gradually restores clarity where confusion once ruled. Morning provides an ideal beginning for this discipline. Before entering the demands of the day, remind yourself that impressions will seek your agreement. Some will encourage irritation. Others will invite pride. Some will attempt to create fear. Others will tempt you toward unnecessary desire. Decide before leaving your place of rest that no judgment will receive your approval until reason has examined it. This quiet promise prepares the mind to remain awake instead of becoming captive to habit. As you move through the day, treat every emotional disturbance as a signal to investigate rather than a command to obey. Whenever impatience begins rising, ask what judgment has produced it. Whenever resentment appears, search for the belief sustaining it. Whenever anxiety grows stronger, identify the conclusion your mind has accepted without proof. Emotional reactions often reveal hidden judgments more clearly than calm moments ever could. One of the greatest sources of unnecessary suffering is the habit of assigning moral value to events that possess none by themselves. Rain interrupts your plans. A meeting is postponed. Someone forgets your name. A stranger speaks abruptly. These events are simply occurrences. The mind immediately decorates them with meanings that reality never supplied. Once those meanings are accepted, emotional turmoil follows naturally. Remove the false meaning, and the event returns to its ordinary size. Your judgments also influence the way you see other people. You may decide that another person acted from malice when ignorance was the true cause. You may assume deliberate disrespect where simple distraction existed. You may interpret silence as hostility when uncertainty prevented speech. These judgments damage relationships long before truth has been discovered. Reason asks for evidence before assigning motives. Emotion often invents motives to satisfy its own disturbance. Whenever you find yourself certain about another person's intentions, become cautious. You possess direct authority only over your own choices. Another person's inner world remains hidden from you. Recognizing this limitation protects your mind from unnecessary resentment. It also encourages fairness, which is impossible without humility. The wise person accepts that incomplete knowledge requires restrained judgment. Another valuable discipline involves examining the language you use within your own mind. Pay attention to words such as always, never, impossible, ruined, and unbearable. These expressions often reveal emotional exaggeration rather than careful reasoning. Replace absolute conclusions with honest observation. Instead of declaring that everything has gone wrong, identify the specific difficulty before you. Precision weakens emotional confusion. Clear thinking begins with accurate description. Throughout the day, return repeatedly to the distinction between facts and judgments. The fact may be that someone disagreed with you. The judgment may be that you have been rejected. The fact may be that a task remains unfinished. The judgment may be that you are incapable. The fact may be that circumstances have changed. The judgment may be that your future has collapsed. Once facts and judgments are separated, reason gains the opportunity to correct what emotion has distorted. Your greatest responsibility is not eliminating difficult experiences, but preventing unnecessary judgments from multiplying their weight. Life already contains enough genuine challenges. There is no wisdom in creating additional burdens through careless interpretation. Many people carry two forms of suffering. One comes from reality, the other comes from imagination. The disciplined mind gradually frees itself from the second, while learning to meet the first with dignity. There will be moments when your emotions feel overwhelming, despite your efforts. During such times, do not struggle against the emotion itself. Instead, quietly investigate the belief supporting it. Every lasting emotional disturbance rests upon some judgment the mind has accepted. Discover the judgment, and you begin approaching the true source of the difficulty. Attempt to suppress emotion without examining judgment, and the disturbance merely changes its appearance while remaining alive beneath the surface. As evening arrives, review the judgments that shaped your day. Recall moments when irritation influenced your speech. Ask which belief gave that irritation its strength. Remember occasions when disappointment lingered longer than necessary. Search for the conclusion that prolonged it. Examine situations where pride, fear, or impatience guided your decisions. This daily review gradually uncovers patterns that remain invisible during hurried activity. Never perform this examination to accuse yourself. Self-condemnation serves neither wisdom nor improvement. Conduct your review with the same honesty a skilled craftsman brings to inspecting his work. He studies imperfections not because he despises the craft, but because he values excellence. Your character deserves the same patient attention. Every discovered error becomes material for future refinement. One powerful exercise is to delay your agreement with every strong impression by a few quiet breaths. During those moments, ask yourself whether reason has fully considered the situation. Has every relevant fact been examined? Has your pride influenced the conclusion? Has fear exaggerated the danger? Has desire distorted your priorities? These simple questions interrupt patterns that might otherwise continue unnoticed. Understand that emotional discipline does not make life cold or empty. Quite the opposite. It allows you to experience life more truthfully because your perception is no longer clouded by impulsive interpretation. Gratitude becomes more sincere because it is no longer mixed with constant anxiety. Compassion becomes more genuine because you are no longer consumed by your own reactions. Courage becomes steadier because fear no longer decides what deserves attention. Your relationships improve naturally as your judgments become more disciplined. You begin listening instead of assuming. You become curious instead of defensive. You respond with fairness instead of haste. Others may continue acting carelessly, but your own conduct remains governed by reason rather than by imitation. You refuse to let another person's lack of discipline become permission for abandoning your own. This practice also changes your relationship with adversity. Difficult circumstances still arrive, but they no longer possess unlimited authority over your inner life. You begin asking what virtue each challenge invites, rather than why the challenge appeared. Delay becomes an opportunity for patience. Uncertainty becomes an opportunity for trust in reason. Loss becomes an opportunity to strengthen moderation. Opposition becomes an opportunity to practice justice without bitterness. Over time, you will notice a quiet transformation. Situations that once provoked immediate anger now invite thoughtful reflection. Circumstances that once created panic now encourage deliberate action. Criticism that once wounded your pride becomes an opportunity to examine yourself honestly. Success that once inflated your confidence becomes another occasion to remain humble. This transformation does not occur because the world has changed. It occurs because your judgments have become more faithful to reason than to impulse. Never assume this work is complete. The mind requires continual training because impressions never cease arriving. Every new day presents fresh opportunities to examine, refine, and strengthen your judgment. Progress belongs to the person who remains teachable. The moment you believe examination is no longer necessary, careless thinking quietly returns. Choose each morning to become a student of your own mind. Watch carefully which impressions request your agreement. Observe which emotions attempt to hurry your conclusions. Notice which assumptions repeatedly seek entrance into your judgment. Then allow reason to perform its proper task with patience and honesty. The more faithfully you practice this discipline, the less your life will be directed by emotional reaction and the more it will reflect stable character. Eventually you will discover that freedom was never hidden within perfect circumstances. It was waiting within the disciplined use of your own judgment. When reason consistently governs the conclusions you accept, emotional reactions lose their power to command your choices. Your days become steadier because your thinking becomes clearer. Your relationships become cleaner because your assumptions become fewer. Your actions become more honorable because they arise from deliberate judgment rather than passing impulse. This is the quiet strength of a person who has learned to examine every judgment until reason becomes the trusted guide of every decision. Number 5. Discipline your desires before they become chains upon you. Your desires are quietly shaping your life long before your actions become visible. Every decision you make follows something you have first declared to be worth pursuing. If that desire has been examined by reason, it becomes a guide toward freedom. If it has been accepted without discipline, it slowly becomes a master that demands obedience. This is why your greatest struggle is not against the world around you. It is against the unchecked desires within you that promise satisfaction while steadily weakening your independence. Many people believe suffering begins when they fail to obtain what they want. The deeper truth is that suffering often begins much earlier, when they convince themselves they cannot be content without it. The object itself is rarely the chain. The chain is the judgment that happiness has become impossible until the desire is fulfilled. Once the mind accepts this belief, peace is no longer its own possession. It has been placed somewhere outside itself, waiting upon conditions it cannot fully command. Look carefully at the desires that govern your ordinary day. You may desire recognition before doing meaningful work. You may desire comfort before fulfilling responsibility. You may desire certainty before taking necessary action. You may desire admiration before speaking honestly. None of these desires appear dangerous at first. They often disguise themselves as reasonable wishes. Yet when they begin directing your choices instead of serving your character, they quietly become the rulers of your life. The disciplined person does not attempt to eliminate every desire. That would oppose human nature rather than refine it. The true task is to educate desire so that it seeks only what strengthens the soul. Desire itself is neither noble nor harmful. Its value depends entirely upon its direction. When it reaches toward virtue, it supports freedom. When it reaches toward things beyond your authority, it produces dependence. Notice how quickly the mind attaches itself to external rewards. It imagines that one achievement will finally provide lasting satisfaction. It believes one possession will complete what feels incomplete. It assumes one relationship will remove every feeling of loneliness. Yet after each desire is fulfilled, another quietly appears demanding equal attention. The mind that has never learned restraint does not become peaceful through abundance. It simply develops larger appetites. This is why abundance without discipline often creates greater dissatisfaction than simplicity with wisdom. A person who has everything yet constantly desires more remains poor in the most important sense. Meanwhile, someone who has trained desire to remain within the boundaries of reason carries wealth that cannot be diminished by changing circumstances. Ask yourself what your desires have been asking you to sacrifice. Have they persuaded you to neglect honesty in pursuit of advantage? Have they encouraged impatience because success seemed too slow? Have they made you resent others for possessing what you wished to possess? Have they convinced you to measure your worth through comparisons instead of character? Every desire demands payment. The wise person carefully examines the price before agreeing to the exchange. Many desires become dangerous because they promise immediate relief while concealing long-term dependence. Comfort invites you to postpone discipline until tomorrow. Pleasure encourages you to forget responsibility for a moment. Recognition tempts you to shape your conduct around applause instead of principle. None of these invitations announce themselves as threats. They arrive quietly, speaking the language of convenience while slowly weakening self-command. The mind rarely becomes enslaved through one dramatic decision. Bondage develops through repeated permission. Each time you obey an unnecessary desire without examination, you strengthen its authority. Each time you refuse to question an impulse, you teach yourself that immediate satisfaction deserves priority over careful judgment. Eventually, what once appeared optional begins to feel necessary, not because reality changed, but because habit reshaped your expectations. Begin each morning by asking yourself what you truly need in order to live well today. Be careful with your answer. Do not include what merely pleases you. Do not include what flatters your pride. Search instead for what supports right conduct. You need honesty. You need moderation. You need courage when discomfort appears. You need justice in your dealings with others. You need wisdom to guide your decisions. These necessities remain available regardless of changing circumstances. Everything else deserves examination before it receives your attachment. As the day unfolds, observe each strong desire before acting upon it. Instead of asking how quickly it can be satisfied, ask whether satisfying it will strengthen or weaken your character. This single question changes the direction of your life because it shifts attention away from temporary gratification toward lasting excellence. Many impulses lose their persuasive power once they are forced to stand before reason. You will discover that desire often exaggerates urgency. It insists that action cannot wait. It whispers that happiness depends upon immediate fulfillment. Yet most desires become weaker when they are simply observed without obedience. Time reveals what impulse attempts to hide. A craving that seemed irresistible a few moments ago often loses much of its force when denied immediate agreement. Patience exposes the temporary nature of many unnecessary wants. One valuable discipline is intentionally delaying harmless pleasures from time to time. Not because pleasure itself is evil, but because the ability to postpone satisfaction strengthens mastery over yourself. Eat simple meals when richer food is available. Walk when convenience encourages unnecessary ease. Choose silence when the urge to speak serves only vanity. These small acts train the will to remain stronger than appetite. They remind you that desire exists to be governed, not obeyed without question. Observe how often desire disguises itself as necessity. You may tell yourself that you need constant entertainment when what you truly need is stillness. You may believe you require endless reassurance when what you actually require is greater trust in your own judgment. You may insist that success must arrive immediately when patience would better serve your character. Clear thinking uncovers these disguises before they become habits. Another danger lies in allowing desire to determine your emotional condition. When obtaining what you want becomes the measure of a good day, disappointment gains enormous power over your peace. Every obstacle begins appearing as an injustice rather than an ordinary part of life. The disciplined person refuses this arrangement. Satisfaction comes not from acquiring every object of desire, but from preserving integrity regardless of outcomes. Pay close attention to the desires that arise during moments of discomfort. Fatigue often awakens the desire to abandon responsibility. Embarrassment awakens the desire to protect pride rather than seek improvement. Loneliness awakens the desire to accept unhealthy companionship instead of honorable solitude. Fear awakens the desire to escape rather than endure. These moments reveal which desires possess the greatest influence over your choices. They deserve careful examination because they shape your character under pressure. Throughout the day, distinguish clearly between preference and dependence. You may prefer comfort without becoming controlled by comfort. You may appreciate success without making it the source of your worth. You may enjoy pleasant circumstances while remaining prepared for their absence. The difference lies not in possessing these things, but in refusing to surrender your peace whenever they disappear. Your desires also influence the way you see other people. Envy arises when another person's good fortune threatens your own ambitions. Possessiveness appears when affection becomes confused with ownership. Resentment grows when someone stands between you and what you crave. None of these responses originate in external events. They emerge from desires that have escaped the guidance of reason. Correct the desire, and these emotional disturbances begin losing their foundation. Practice gratitude, not as an emotional exercise, but as a discipline of perception. Look carefully at what already supports a good life. You possess the opportunity to think honestly. You possess the ability to choose your conduct. You possess another day in which virtue may be practiced. These gifts deserve greater attention than countless unnecessary wants. A grateful mind naturally weakens excessive desire because it recognizes existing abundance rather than imagined deficiency. As evening approaches, Examine the desires that directed your day. Which ones encouraged wise action? Which ones attempted to distract you from duty? Which ones persuaded you to seek comfort instead of growth? Which ones led you toward impatience or unnecessary comparison? This daily review transforms hidden influences into visible lessons. Once seen clearly, many unhealthy desires lose much of their authority. Never become discouraged when you discover attachments within yourself. Discovery marks the beginning of freedom, not failure. You cannot govern what remains hidden. Honest examination reveals where discipline must now be applied. Every unnoticed desire eventually governs behavior. Every acknowledged desire becomes capable of correction. Understand that moderation is not deprivation. It is intelligent proportion. It does not reject what is naturally enjoyable. It simply refuses to allow enjoyment to replace virtue as the highest aim. The disciplined person appreciates pleasant experiences without becoming dependent upon their continuation. This balance protects inner stability because happiness no longer rests upon fragile conditions. Your relationships become healthier as your desires become wiser. Instead of expecting others to satisfy every emotional need, you begin offering friendship from a place of inner steadiness. Instead of demanding constant agreement, you learn to respect differing judgments. Instead of seeking possession, you practice goodwill. Love becomes less anxious because it is guided by reason rather than attachment. The same discipline applies to ambition. Pursue worthy goals with full effort, yet never allow achievement to become the measure of your identity. Success deserves careful work, but your character deserves greater protection. If ambition requires dishonesty, abandon the ambition before it corrupts the soul. If recognition requires abandoning moderation, let recognition pass. No accomplishment compensates for the loss of inner integrity. There will be moments when powerful desires return despite sincere practice. Do not interpret their return as defeat. Every day offers another opportunity to strengthen self-command. Just as the body becomes stronger through repeated resistance, the will grows steadier through repeated discipline. Each victory may appear small, yet together they reshape the direction of an entire life. You will gradually notice a remarkable change. Situations that once created constant craving begin losing their influence. Simplicity becomes sufficient. Waiting becomes easier. Gratitude becomes more natural. Choices become clearer because they are no longer clouded by endless appetite. The mind discovers a quiet contentment that excessive desire could never provide. This transformation does not happen because you finally acquired everything you wanted. It happens because you learned to want only what serves the excellence of your character. That change reaches the deepest level of freedom. External conditions continue changing, yet your peace remains rooted where fortune cannot easily disturb it. Each sunrise offers another opportunity to educate your desires before they educate you. Welcome every impulse with examination instead of immediate agreement. Ask whether it strengthens wisdom, justice, courage, or moderation. If it does, pursue it with steady commitment. If it does not, release it without resentment. No unnecessary desire deserves authority over a disciplined mind. Eventually you will understand that the strongest chains are rarely visible. They are formed from repeated attachments that quietly convince the soul it cannot live well without things that were never essential. Break those chains through daily examination. Refuse to let appetite become your ruler. Teach your desires to follow reason instead of commanding it. Then your choices will become freer, your relationships cleaner, your ambitions nobler, and your days calmer, because nothing unnecessary will possess the power to govern the direction of your life. Number 6. Practice quiet contentment through virtue instead of constant distraction. Most people do not fear hardship as much as they fear being alone with their own minds. That is why they keep filling every empty moment with noise, constant activity, endless entertainment, unnecessary conversation, and restless pursuit. They believe movement is the same as progress because stillness forces them to face the condition of their inner life. Yet no amount of distraction has ever produced a disciplined character. It merely postpones the moment when truth finally demands your attention. Look honestly at your ordinary day. How often do you reach for something simply because silence feels uncomfortable? How often do you search for another task before completing the examination of your own thoughts? How often do you keep your mind occupied so that it never has to answer difficult questions? These habits may appear harmless, but they slowly weaken your ability to govern yourself. A mind that constantly escapes itself never learns how to live with itself. Quiet contentment is not created by removing every difficulty from life. It is created by removing the belief that constant stimulation is necessary for peace. A person who cannot remain calm without continual distraction has unknowingly surrendered authority over his own attention. His peace depends upon external activity instead of inward stability. Whenever the noise disappears, anxiety immediately fills the empty space because the mind has forgotten how to stand without support. The disciplined life asks something very different from you. It asks you to become comfortable in the company of your own reason. It asks you to discover that your greatest companion is not entertainment but a well-governed mind. This does not happen automatically. It requires deliberate practice because modern habits encourage endless consumption while neglecting careful reflection. Notice what distraction often hides. It conceals unresolved resentment. It conceals fear that has never been examined. It conceals desires that continue directing your choices without permission from reason. It conceals the quiet dissatisfaction that appears whenever external excitement fades. None of these conditions improve simply because attention has been redirected. They remain patiently waiting until silence finally reveals them. Many people mistakenly believe they are exhausted because they work too much. Sometimes the deeper cause is that they never stop feeding their minds with unnecessary impressions. Every opinion they hear demands attention. Every comparison influences self-worth. Every piece of information requests emotional involvement. The mind becomes crowded not because life contains too much responsibility, but because it carries countless burdens that never belonged to it in the first place. You must begin protecting your attention with the same seriousness that you protect your character. Attention determines what your mind repeatedly becomes. Whatever receives continual focus gradually shapes your judgments, your emotions, and eventually your conduct. If your attention remains scattered among endless distractions, your character will reflect the same disorder. If your attention is guided by reason, your life begins acquiring quiet strength. Start each morning without immediately allowing the outside world to occupy your thinking. Before messages, conversations, or demands begin arriving, sit quietly for a few moments. Let your mind settle before asking it to perform its duties. Ask yourself what kind of character you intend to practice today. Consider where patience may be required. Reflect upon opportunities to exercise justice. Prepare yourself to meet inconvenience with moderation instead of complaint. These moments establish inward direction before circumstances begin pulling your attention elsewhere. Silence should become one of your daily disciplines rather than an occasional accident. Not silence imposed by isolation, but silence chosen for examination. During these moments, do not seek pleasant thoughts. Seek truthful ones. Ask where your mind has become attached to unnecessary concerns. Notice where anxiety repeatedly enters. Observe where pride quietly influences your decisions. The purpose is not to criticize yourself, but to become familiar with the movements of your own soul. Many distractions appear useful because they temporarily remove uncomfortable emotions. Yet relief obtained through avoidance always carries hidden cost. The emotion remains unresolved. The habit of escape becomes stronger. The next discomfort then requires even greater distraction to achieve the same temporary relief. Eventually, the person no longer knows how to endure ordinary stillness because the habit of constant escape has become deeply rooted. Virtue offers another path entirely. Instead of escaping discomfort, it teaches you to remain present with it while allowing reason to guide your response. If sadness appears, examine it honestly without becoming consumed by it. If frustration arises, observe the judgment producing it before acting. If uncertainty enters your mind, accept its presence without rushing towards unnecessary distraction. Strength grows wherever honest attention replaces avoidance. Quiet contentment develops when your satisfaction depends upon the quality of your conduct rather than the quantity of your stimulation. A day filled with honorable action remains valuable even if it contains no excitement. A conversation conducted with fairness enriches the soul more deeply than hours of meaningless entertainment. Honest labor completed with care strengthens character in ways that constant amusement never can. You may discover that much of what you call boredom is simply unfamiliar stillness. The undisciplined mind has become so accustomed to continuous stimulation that ordinary peace feels empty. Resist the urge to escape immediately. Stay with the silence a little longer. Allow your thoughts to slow naturally instead of forcing them toward another distraction. Gradually, the mind begins recognizing stillness not as deprivation but as restoration. Throughout the day, practice giving complete attention to whatever duty stands before you. If you are speaking with someone, listen fully instead of preparing your next response. If you are working, devote yourself entirely to the task instead of dividing your attention among unnecessary interruptions. If you are resting, rest without guilt or restless anticipation. This discipline trains the mind to remain where reason has placed it, instead of wandering endlessly through imagined alternatives. Many people pursue constant novelty because they secretly believe fulfillment exists somewhere else. They imagine another place, another possession, another achievement, or another circumstance will finally provide lasting satisfaction. Yet wherever they travel, they carry the same unexamined mind. Until character becomes the source of contentment, changing surroundings merely changes the scenery while preserving the same inner restlessness. True contentment never depends upon possessing more than the present moment allows. It depends upon using the present moment well. Ask yourself frequently whether your current action reflects wisdom, justice, courage, or moderation. If it does, remain faithful to it regardless of how ordinary it appears. Great character is built through countless ordinary actions performed with extraordinary consistency. Guard yourself against the temptation to mistake busyness for purpose. Activity alone does not improve the soul. A person may spend every hour occupied while neglecting the only work that truly matters. If your conduct lacks examination, greater activity merely multiplies unexamined habits. Purpose begins when each action serves virtue rather than impulse. One valuable practice is intentionally creating brief periods during the day when nothing demands your immediate attention. Put aside every unnecessary distraction. Breathe calmly. Observe the direction of your thinking without trying to force it. Notice which concerns repeatedly return. Ask whether these concerns belong within your authority or outside it. Release those that do not belong to you. Strengthen your commitment toward those that do. This simple exercise restores order where scattered attention once prevailed. Your speech also reveals whether contentment has begun taking root. A restless mind often fills silence with unnecessary words. It seeks validation through constant explanation or approval through endless conversation. A disciplined person speaks when speech serves truth or justice. Otherwise, quietness becomes an expression of self-command rather than discomfort. Practice finding satisfaction in simple responsibilities completed well. Prepare your work carefully. Keep your promises without seeking recognition. Fulfill obligations even when no one observes your effort. Care for ordinary duties with the same seriousness you would give remarkable achievements. Virtue does not become greater because the audience becomes larger. Its value remains unchanged regardless of who notices. There will be days when your mind strongly desires distraction because honest examination reveals uncomfortable truths. Perhaps pride has guided recent decisions. Perhaps resentment has lingered longer than reason permits. Perhaps fear has delayed necessary action. Welcome these discoveries instead of fleeing from them. Every truth uncovered becomes an opportunity for correction. Every truth avoided continues governing your life without permission. As evening approaches, allow quiet reflection to conclude your day. Review not the number of accomplishments you collected, but the quality of character you practiced. Did your attention remain faithful to the present responsibility? Did unnecessary distractions steal time from meaningful duties? Did you preserve fairness during difficult conversations? Did you allow entertainment to replace examination when discomfort appeared? These questions cultivate gradual improvement because they direct attention toward what truly belongs within your authority. Never measure the value of your day by how exciting it felt. Measure it by whether your conduct reflected reason. Excitement fades quickly because it depends upon changing circumstances. Character remains because it grows through repeated choices. A calm conscience provides deeper satisfaction than endless stimulation because it cannot be exhausted by repetition. You will notice another important change as this discipline matures. Small pleasures become easier to appreciate because they are no longer expected to carry the impossible burden of completing your life. A simple meal becomes enough. Honest friendship becomes sufficient. Useful work becomes rewarding. Ordinary moments regain their richness because your mind has stopped demanding constant intensity. Your relationships also benefit from quiet contentment. When you no longer require others to entertain every emotional need, you become more patient with their imperfections. You listen more carefully because your attention is no longer divided by restless thought. You appreciate companionship without demanding continual reassurance. Relationships become expressions of goodwill rather than attempts to escape inner emptiness. Do not imagine that practicing contentment means abandoning ambition or refusing improvement. The disciplined person continues striving toward excellence. The difference is that effort now arises from commitment to virtue instead of dissatisfaction with the present. You improve because reason recognizes growth as good, not because self-worth depends upon reaching another destination. There will always be voices encouraging greater distraction. They will insist that every quiet moment must be filled, every silence interrupted, every pause occupied. Resist this pressure. Your greatest insights will rarely arrive while your attention is scattered. They emerge when the mind becomes sufficiently calm to examine itself without interference. Remember that attention is one of the few possessions entirely entrusted to you. Guard it carefully, direct it wisely. Refuse to spend it carelessly upon matters that weaken your judgment or inflame unnecessary desire. Each moment of disciplined attention strengthens your ability to live according to reason rather than impulse. Eventually you will discover that quiet contentment is not something you find after escaping the world. It is something you cultivate while living within it. The world continues changing, responsibilities remain, challenges still appear. Yet your inner condition becomes increasingly stable because your peace no longer depends upon constant distraction. It rests upon the steady practice of virtue expressed through each ordinary day. When you learn to welcome silence without fear, fulfill simple duties without complaint, examine yourself without avoidance, and direct your attention according to reason instead of impulse, you begin possessing a form of contentment that external excitement cannot provide. Nothing dramatic announces its arrival. It grows quietly through disciplined living until one day you realize that the restless search for constant stimulation has ended. In its place stands a mind that has learned to find lasting satisfaction in the faithful practice of wisdom, justice, moderation, and courage. That quiet strength cannot be purchased, borrowed, or distracted into existence. It must be cultivated within, one deliberate choice at a time. Number 7. Endure every hardship with calm courage and steady reason always. Hardship does not ask whether you feel prepared before it enters your life. It arrives without consulting your plans, your preferences, or your expectations. It interrupts ordinary days without apology. Many people spend their lives hoping they can avoid this reality, believing that peace will finally appear once difficulty disappears. Yet that hope keeps them in quiet conflict with life itself. A mind that expects a path without obstacles will be defeated by every obstacle it meets. A disciplined mind prepares itself differently. It accepts that hardship belongs to the human condition and chooses to strengthen character before the next trial arrives. You do not become courageous when hardship begins. You reveal the courage you have been quietly building long before it arrived. Every ordinary choice either prepares you for future difficulty or leaves you weaker before it. The person who avoids every inconvenience in peaceful times rarely discovers unexpected strength during severe trials. Character develops through daily discipline, not through occasional inspiration. When hardship eventually appears, it simply exposes the habits that already govern your inner life. Consider how often your suffering grows larger than the event that first caused it. A setback occurs, and immediately your thinking extends far beyond the present moment. One disappointment becomes a prediction that every future effort will fail. One painful conversation becomes proof that every relationship is collapsing. One unexpected loss becomes the beginning of countless imagined disasters. The original hardship may be real, yet your judgment multiplies its weight until you carry burdens that reality never placed upon you. Reason teaches another response. It asks you to remain with what is actually before you, instead of wandering into imagined futures. It reminds you that today's challenge deserves today's attention. Nothing is gained by adding tomorrow's fears to today's responsibility. A disciplined mind refuses to suffer twice, once through the event itself, and again through unnecessary anticipation. When hardship enters your life, your first responsibility is not to eliminate your discomfort. Your first responsibility is to preserve the quality of your character. Ask yourself whether this difficulty has the power to remove your honesty. Ask whether it can force you to abandon justice. Ask whether it can compel you to surrender moderation or wisdom. If the answer is no, then something essential remains untouched within you. That realization becomes the foundation upon which calm courage is built. Many people confuse courage with dramatic action. They imagine courage belongs only to extraordinary moments witnessed by others. Yet genuine courage often appears quietly. It is choosing patience when irritation feels easier. It is continuing honorable work despite uncertain results. It is remaining truthful when dishonesty promises immediate advantage. It is accepting temporary discomfort rather than abandoning principle. These quiet decisions strengthen the soul more deeply than any display performed for recognition. Hardship often exposes hidden attachments that ordinary comfort keeps concealed. When plans fail, you discover whether your peace depended upon success. When criticism arrives, you discover whether your identity depended upon approval. When uncertainty appears, you discover whether your confidence rested upon guaranteed outcomes rather than disciplined judgment. Difficulty reveals what comfort often hides. For this reason, every challenge contains an opportunity to know yourself more honestly. Begin each morning by preparing your mind instead of protecting your expectations. Remind yourself that inconvenience may appear before the day ends. Someone may misunderstand your intentions. Circumstances may refuse your preferences. Progress may unfold more slowly than you desire. None of these possibilities should surprise you. They belong to the ordinary nature of life. Preparation does not create pessimism. It creates steadiness. A prepared mind wastes less energy resisting what was always possible. When hardship finally arrives, pause before assigning meaning to it. Do not immediately declare it unfair, unbearable, or destructive. Such conclusions belong to emotion before examination has taken place. Instead, ask what this situation now requires from your character. Perhaps it requires patience where frustration first appeared. Perhaps it requires honesty where fear suggested concealment. Perhaps it requires perseverance where discouragement invited surrender. Every difficulty presents an opportunity to practice one of the virtues. This opportunity often becomes visible only after emotional reaction has been replaced by thoughtful reflection. You will notice that hardship frequently tempts you toward complaint. Complaint offers temporary emotional release, yet it rarely improves the situation before you. More importantly, repeated complaint teaches the mind to focus upon what lies beyond its authority rather than upon the conduct still available. Each complaint strengthens helplessness. Each deliberate action strengthens self-command. The difference may appear small in a single moment, but repeated over years, it shapes entirely different lives. One valuable practice during difficult seasons is narrowing your attention to the present responsibility. Do not attempt to solve every possible future problem at once. Ask only what honorable action belongs to this moment. If a conversation requires honesty, speak honestly. If a mistake requires correction, correct it carefully. If waiting becomes necessary, wait with dignity instead of agitation. Great burdens become manageable when divided into present duties rather than imagined futures. There will be moments when hardship awakens strong emotion despite sincere discipline. Do not become ashamed of this experience. Emotional movement belongs to human nature. What matters is whether emotion becomes your ruler or your visitor. Allow yourself to feel without surrendering your judgment. Observe the emotion carefully. Ask what belief supports it. Separate the feeling from the conclusion your mind has attached to it. Once reason resumes its proper place, even powerful emotion begins losing its authority. The disciplined person understands that endurance does not mean passive resignation. It means remaining faithful to right action despite uncomfortable conditions. If justice requires speaking, speak. If wisdom recommends silence, remain silent. If courage calls for perseverance, continue. If moderation advises restraint, obey restraint. Endurance is active because it constantly chooses virtue instead of impulse, regardless of changing circumstances. You may wonder why hardship continues appearing despite sincere effort toward wisdom. This question often arises because the mind quietly expects virtue to purchase immunity from difficulty. Yet disciplined living was never meant to remove every challenge. Its purpose is to prepare you to meet challenges without abandoning yourself. The value of reason becomes most visible precisely when life refuses to follow your preferences. Pay careful attention to the language you use while facing adversity. Avoid declaring yourself defeated before the work has truly ended. Avoid describing temporary conditions as permanent realities. Replace exaggerated conclusions with accurate observation. Instead of saying everything has been lost, identify exactly what has changed. Instead of saying nothing can improve, identify the next honorable action available. Clear language protects clear judgment. Distorted language strengthens unnecessary despair. Another essential discipline is refusing to compare your hardship with someone else's fortune. Comparison distracts attention away from your own responsibility and towards circumstances beyond your influence. Whether another person's path appears easier or harder contributes nothing to the excellence of your own conduct. Every human being receives different conditions. The common responsibility remains the same. Govern yourself well within the circumstances presently entrusted to you. Throughout the day, remind yourself that no external event possesses authority over your character unless you willingly surrender it. A difficult person cannot force dishonesty from you. A painful setback cannot compel injustice. An unexpected loss cannot require bitterness. Others may influence your circumstances, but your judgment remains your own responsibility. Guard that responsibility carefully, because it represents the strongest form of freedom available to any person. When fatigue begins weakening your resolve, return to simple principles rather than complicated explanations. Ask whether your next action reflects wisdom. Ask whether it preserves fairness. Ask whether it requires courage. Ask whether it demonstrates moderation. These questions restore clarity because they direct attention toward conduct instead of emotion. Character is strengthened one decision at a time, not through grand declarations. As evening arrives, examine the hardships you encountered throughout the day. Do not ask whether the day felt pleasant. Ask whether your conduct remained worthy despite discomfort. Recall moments when irritation tempted your speech. Remember situations where discouragement invited surrender. Observe where fear attempted to influence judgment. Every honest review strengthens tomorrow's discipline because it transforms experience into instruction. Never measure your progress by the absence of difficulty. Measure it by the increasing steadiness with which you respond to difficulty. The world may remain unpredictable. Challenges may continue arriving without invitation. Yet if your judgment becomes calmer, your speech more measured, your actions more honorable, and your emotions more obedient to reason, then genuine progress has taken place regardless of external conditions. Practice accepting small inconveniences willingly, rather than resisting each one. Stand patiently in delays without feeding irritation. Complete ordinary responsibilities even when enthusiasm is absent. Welcome simple discomfort instead of demanding constant ease. These daily exercises prepare the soul for greater trials. The person who has learned to endure small hardships with dignity rarely collapses before larger ones. You will also discover that hardship teaches compassion when received wisely. A person who has patiently examined personal suffering becomes slower to judge the struggles of others. Instead of responding with harshness, reason encourages understanding. Instead of assuming weakness, wisdom recognizes the unseen burdens carried by every human being. Courage joined with compassion strengthens both character and community. Do not expect courage to remove fear completely. Courage often walks beside fear while refusing to obey it. The disciplined mind acknowledges uncertainty without becoming paralyzed by it. It recognizes risk without surrendering judgment. It proceeds according to reason, even when complete confidence remains absent. This quiet perseverance possesses greater strength than reckless boldness because it arises from careful examination rather than emotional excitement. There will be days when your efforts seem unnoticed and your endurance appears unrewarded. Continue anyway. Virtue does not depend upon applause for its value. Honest conduct remains honorable even when hidden from every eye. The true reward lies in preserving the integrity of your own character. No recognition equals the quiet confidence that grows from knowing you remained faithful to reason under pressure. Remember that every hardship eventually passes, but the character developed while enduring it remains. Pain changes, circumstances change, success and failure exchange places, reputation rises and falls. Yet each courageous response becomes part of the person you are becoming. No difficulty faced with wisdom is ever wasted because it leaves behind greater discipline than existed before. Guard yourself against bitterness more carefully than against hardship itself. Hardship tests your strength. Bitterness gradually destroys it from within. A bitter mind continues arguing with events that have already occurred. A disciplined mind accepts reality as it is and directs energy toward honorable response. Acceptance does not approve of every circumstance. It simply refuses to waste life wishing reality had unfolded differently. As your practice deepens, you will begin noticing a profound change. Challenges that once seemed overwhelming become opportunities to exercise self-command. Delays become occasions for patience. Uncertainty becomes training for trust in reason. Opposition becomes practice in justice. Loss becomes instruction in moderation. Nothing magical has happened to the world around you. The transformation has occurred within your own judgment. Rise each morning prepared not for comfort, but for faithful conduct. Carry yourself through each difficulty with steady attention instead of hurried reaction. Let every hardship remind you that character is always more valuable than convenience. Let every obstacle become another invitation to strengthen wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation. Then no trial will arrive without offering you the chance to become better than you were the day before. Eventually you will understand that calm courage is not the absence of struggle. It is the refusal to let struggle determine the condition of your soul. Steady reason does not remove life's burdens. It teaches you how to carry them without surrendering your dignity. When your judgments become disciplined, your conduct becomes unwavering and your attention remains fixed upon virtue rather than circumstance. Hardship loses its ability to rule your inner life. It may test your endurance, but it cannot conquer a mind that has learned to remain faithful to reason through every season of existence. Number 8. Release every expectation that steals your present peace willingly. Much of the unrest that follows you through each day does not come from reality itself. It comes from the quiet demands you place upon reality before it has even unfolded. You expect people to understand your intentions without explanation. You expect your efforts to produce immediate results. You expect life to reward fairness without delay. You expect each day to move according to your plans. When these expectations meet a world that refuses to obey them, disappointment quickly enters, followed by frustration, resentment, and anxiety. Yet the true cause of your disturbance is rarely the event before you. It is the hidden expectation you carried into that event without ever examining whether it belonged within your authority. Expectation often disguises itself as reasonable planning. There is nothing wrong with preparing carefully or pursuing worthy goals. The danger begins when preparation quietly transforms into attachment. You no longer simply work toward an outcome. You begin believing that your peace depends upon that outcome arriving exactly as imagined. At that moment, your contentment leaves the one place where it can remain secure. It becomes tied to circumstances that no amount of effort can completely govern. Look honestly at the expectations you carry without noticing them. Perhaps you expect every conversation to end with agreement. Perhaps you expect your kindness to always receive gratitude. Perhaps you expect your discipline to prevent every setback. Perhaps you expect people to act according to your understanding of what is right. These expectations may appear harmless until reality chooses another path. Then you discover how much authority they secretly held over your emotional life. A disciplined mind does not refuse to hope. It refuses to become dependent upon hope. It acts with full commitment while remaining prepared for many possible outcomes. This balance preserves both effort and freedom. You continue working with excellence because virtue requires it, not because success has become the price of your peace. Whether the result arrives today, tomorrow, or not at all, your character remains under your own guidance. The greatest mistake is believing that expectations create security. In truth, they often create vulnerability. Every unnecessary expectation becomes another opportunity for disappointment. Every attachment to a particular outcome grants external events permission to disturb your inner condition. Freedom begins when you recognize this exchange and quietly refuse it. You stop asking the world to fulfill promises it never made. Instead, you focus upon fulfilling the responsibilities that truly belong to you. Many disappointments begin long before the disappointing event occurs. They begin in imagination. The mind constructs a future filled with certainty. It rehearses conversations that have not happened. It celebrates victories not yet earned. It assumes cooperation from people whose choices remain unknown. Then reality unfolds differently, and the mind experiences not only the actual event but also the collapse of its imagined certainty. Much of the resulting pain belongs to expectations rather than to facts. Reason offers a different approach. It welcomes preparation while rejecting certainty where certainty does not exist. It allows you to plan carefully without demanding that life obey the plan. It reminds you that your responsibility ends with the quality of your own effort. Everything beyond that point belongs to conditions larger than your individual control. Accepting this truth does not weaken determination. It strengthens resilience because disappointment loses much of its power over a mind that expected uncertainty from the beginning. Begin every morning by preparing your judgments instead of predicting your outcomes. Before entering the day, remind yourself that people will make choices according to their own understanding, not yours. Circumstances will change without seeking your permission. Unexpected delays may interrupt your intentions. Opportunities may appear where none were anticipated. None of these possibilities deserve surprise. They belong to the ordinary nature of existence. Preparation for uncertainty creates steadiness where rigid expectation creates fragile hope. Throughout the day, observe the moments when irritation suddenly appears. Ask yourself, what expectation has just been challenged? Did you expect another person to respond differently? Did you expect the task to require less effort? Did you expect recognition to arrive more quickly? Emotional disturbance often points directly toward an expectation that has quietly taken control of your judgment. Once identified, it becomes possible to examine whether that expectation deserved your attachment in the first place. Another important discipline is distinguishing between intention and demand. Intention guides your actions. Demand attempts to command reality. Intention says that you will work honestly toward a worthy goal. Demand insists that the goal must arrive exactly as imagined. Intention remains within your authority because it concerns your conduct. Demand reaches beyond your authority because it attempts to govern circumstances that belong to many causes outside your control. You will notice that expectation often influences your relationships more deeply than the actions of other people. You may become disappointed not because someone behaved unjustly, but because they failed to satisfy an image you had created of them. Instead of seeing them as they truly are, you judged them according to assumptions that existed only in your own mind. Reason asks you to replace imagined versions of people with careful observation. Others deserve fairness, not expectations they never agreed to fulfill. When someone fails to meet your hopes, pause before concluding that they have harmed you. First, examine whether you expected something that never belonged within your authority. You control your honesty. You do not control another person's gratitude. You control your kindness. You do not control another person's appreciation. You control your effort. You do not control another person's response. Once these boundaries become clear, resentment begins losing its foundation. The same principle applies to your own progress. Many people abandon discipline because improvement arrives more slowly than expected. They imagined immediate transformation. When ordinary human growth proves gradual, discouragement replaces commitment. Yet character has never been shaped through impatience. It grows through repeated choices made faithfully across many ordinary days. Release the expectation of rapid perfection and devote yourself instead to consistent practice. One valuable exercise is ending each important effort with a quiet reminder that the result no longer belongs entirely to you. Complete your work with care, speak honestly, act justly, then allow the outcome to unfold without continual emotional negotiation. This practice does not encourage indifference. It protects your peace by preventing endless attachment to matters that have already passed beyond your influence. Notice how expectation often steals the present moment. While speaking with a friend, your attention moves toward what you hope they will say next. While working, your mind races toward future recognition instead of present excellence. While resting, you begin worrying about tomorrow's uncertainties. In each case, expectation removes you from the only place where right action is actually possible. Reason continually calls attention back to the present responsibility because only here can virtue be practiced. As difficulties arise, resist the temptation to argue with reality. The event has already occurred. Complaint cannot erase it. Anger cannot reverse it. Wishing cannot replace it. Your energy now belongs elsewhere. It belongs to choosing the most honorable response available within present conditions. This shift from resistance to responsibility transforms the way hardship is experienced. You stop asking why events ignored your expectations and begin asking how wisdom should now guide your conduct. Guard yourself against expecting constant comfort from life. Ease has never been guaranteed. Delays, misunderstandings, disappointments, and losses remain ordinary companions of human existence. Expecting their complete absence prepares the mind for repeated frustration. Accepting their possibility prepares the soul for calm endurance. Acceptance is not surrender, it is accurate perception. Accurate perception strengthens sound judgment. During quiet moments, examine the expectations attached to your ambitions. Ask whether success has become more important than integrity. Ask whether recognition has become more valuable than justice. Ask whether achieving a particular result has begun outweighing the importance of honorable conduct. Whenever outcomes become greater than virtue, expectations quietly replace wisdom as your guide. Restore the proper order by placing character above achievement. Another helpful practice is expressing gratitude before evaluating what remains unfinished. Gratitude reminds the mind of what already exists, rather than focusing exclusively upon what has not yet arrived. You possess the opportunity to choose your conduct today. You possess the ability to improve your judgment. You possess another chance to strengthen moderation, courage, justice, and wisdom. These realities deserve attention because they remain available regardless of changing circumstances. Each evening, review the expectations that influenced your emotions throughout the day. Where did disappointment first appear? Which imagined outcome had become necessary for your peace? Which assumptions about other people remained unexamined? Which future events occupied attention that belonged to present responsibilities? Honest reflection gradually exposes expectations that quietly govern daily life. Once visible, they can be released through reason instead of preserved through habit. Do not confuse releasing expectations with abandoning responsibility. The disciplined person continues striving with full effort. The difference lies in where satisfaction is found. Peace no longer depends upon controlling events beyond reach. It grows from knowing that every available choice was governed by virtue. This kind of satisfaction cannot be removed by delayed success or unexpected failure because its foundation remains within your own authority. There will be moments when your mind instinctively returns to old expectations. It will imagine perfect outcomes. It will demand certainty before action. It will seek guarantees that life cannot honestly provide. Do not become discouraged when this happens. Simply notice the movement of your thinking. Gently return attention to what belongs within your control. Every return strengthens discipline. Every correction deepens freedom. Over time, you will discover something remarkable. Releasing expectations does not diminish your joy, it protects it. Without rigid demands placed upon reality, pleasant moments become gifts instead of entitlements. Success becomes something appreciated rather than required. Relationships become opportunities for goodwill rather than contracts built upon hidden conditions. The present moment becomes richer because it is no longer overshadowed by imagined futures. You also become more resilient when unexpected change arrives. Plans may fail without destroying your purpose. Opportunities may disappear without removing your dignity. Other people may disappoint you without corrupting your character. Your stability remains because it was never built upon certainty. It was built upon disciplined judgment and faithful conduct. Remember that every expectation extending beyond your authority asks the impossible from life. It asks changing circumstances to provide permanent peace. They cannot fulfill that request because they were never designed for it. Peace belongs elsewhere. It belongs in a mind that willingly accepts uncertainty while remaining unwavering in virtue. Rise each day prepared to act well, rather than to control everything that follows. Release the demand that life unfold according to your preferences. Release the belief that others must satisfy your hopes. Release the illusion that certainty can be guaranteed before faithful action begins. Keep your attention fixed upon the only responsibility that never leaves your hands, the quality of your own judgment and conduct. When you willingly release every expectation that steals your present peace, you do not become passive or indifferent. You become free. Your effort remains wholehearted because virtue deserves nothing less. Your mind remains calm because it no longer bargains with reality. Your character becomes steady because it depends upon choices rather than circumstances. In that freedom you discover a lasting peace that no unexpected event can easily disturb, because it was never entrusted to the changing world in the first place. Number 9. Build unwavering self-respect through consistent, honorable daily actions. Many people spend years searching for confidence while neglecting the only place where genuine confidence can be built. They hope encouraging words will silence their doubts. They seek admiration from others to repair an opinion of themselves that has been weakened by their own choices. Yet lasting self-respect has never been given by praise, reputation, or success. It is earned quietly through the repeated experience of keeping your own word, governing your own conduct, and acting honorably when no reward is guaranteed. The person who cannot trust himself will eventually depend upon the approval of others. The person who has learned to trust his own character carries a strength that changing opinions cannot easily disturb. Look honestly at the moments when you have respected yourself most deeply. They were probably not the moments when everything became easy. They were the moments when you acted according to principle despite discomfort. Perhaps you admitted a mistake instead of protecting your pride. Perhaps you completed a difficult responsibility when no one expected it. Perhaps you remained fair towards someone who treated you unfairly. In those moments, something greater than temporary satisfaction appeared. You experienced the quiet certainty that your character had remained intact. Self-respect cannot be spoken into existence. It must be demonstrated through conduct. Every honorable action becomes evidence presented before your own conscience. Every dishonest choice becomes evidence as well. Your inner judgment watches continuously. It notices promises you keep and promises you abandon. It remembers excuses you accepted and responsibilities you fulfilled. Before you ask whether others believe in you, Ask whether your own actions have given you sufficient reason to believe in yourself. Many people attempt to protect their self-image while neglecting their actual character. They become concerned with appearing disciplined instead of becoming disciplined. They seek recognition for virtues they have not consistently practiced. This path creates constant anxiety because appearances require continual maintenance. Character requires only faithful action. The disciplined person chooses the second path because reality provides stronger foundations than reputation. You cannot build unwavering self-respect upon occasional effort. Character grows through repetition. One honest decision is valuable, yet repeated honesty transforms the soul. One courageous action matters, yet daily courage reshapes identity. One moment of patience deserves appreciation, yet consistent patience gradually becomes part of who you are. Excellence is not an isolated event. It is the accumulated result of countless ordinary choices governed by reason instead of impulse. Begin each morning by deciding which qualities deserve your loyalty today. Do not ask what recognition you hope to receive. Ask what virtues you intend to practice regardless of recognition. Resolve to speak truthfully, even when exaggeration appears convenient. Resolve to remain just when frustration invites unfairness. Resolve to exercise moderation when appetite requests excess. Resolve to endure inconvenience without complaint. These quiet commitments establish the direction of your day before circumstances begin testing your resolve. Throughout the day, remember that every decision strengthens either trust or doubt within yourself. Whenever you abandon a responsibility you know should be completed, your conscience notices. Whenever you betray your own judgment to satisfy temporary comfort, your conscience notices. Whenever you act according to wisdom despite difficulty, your conscience notices that as well. Self-respect develops through this ongoing relationship between intention and action. Your own mind becomes either a witness to integrity or a witness to compromise. One of the greatest enemies of self-respect is the habit of making promises to yourself that you repeatedly ignore. Each broken promise weakens confidence in your own discipline. The next commitment feels less believable because experience has taught your mind that your words often exceed your actions. Begin restoring trust by making fewer promises and fulfilling them completely. Let your commitments become smaller if necessary, but never allow them to become empty. Do not underestimate the power of ordinary responsibilities. Many people wait for dramatic opportunities to prove their character while neglecting the duties already placed before them. Yet your treatment of ordinary tasks reveals your true discipline. If you avoid simple responsibilities because they seem insignificant, you prepare yourself to avoid greater responsibilities when they eventually arrive. Faithfulness begins with what is already in your hands. There will be moments when no one observes your conduct. These moments deserve special attention because they reveal whether virtue has become your guide or whether recognition remains your true motivation. Complete your work carefully even when praise is absent. Speak honestly even when deception could remain hidden. Fulfill obligations even when neglect appears easier. Character becomes strongest where external reward no longer determines effort. Another important discipline is refusing to measure yourself through comparison. Comparison shifts attention away from your own progress and towards circumstances that belong to others. Someone else may possess greater wealth, greater ability, or greater recognition. None of these conditions determine the quality of your own conduct. Self-respect grows through faithfulness to your own responsibilities, not through competition with another person's path. Pay careful attention to the conversation you have with yourself after each decision. When you compromise your principles for convenience, notice the quiet dissatisfaction that follows. When you remain faithful despite discomfort, observe the deeper sense of stability that appears. These experiences teach a lesson that no outside instructor can provide. They reveal that the greatest reward of honorable action is the condition it creates within your own soul. Throughout the day, ask yourself one simple question before important choices. Will this action make it easier or harder to respect myself tonight? This question cuts through many unnecessary temptations because it shifts attention away from immediate reward toward lasting character. Temporary advantage loses much of its appeal when measured against the permanent influence it may have upon your conscience. Your speech provides another opportunity to strengthen self-respect. Avoid speaking merely to impress others. Avoid pretending certainty where knowledge is incomplete. Avoid promising what you cannot honestly deliver. Let your words become reliable because they reflect careful judgment rather than passing emotion. Over time, your own mind begins trusting speech that consistently matches action. Do not imagine that honorable conduct requires perfect performance. Every person makes mistakes. The difference lies in how those mistakes are received. Pride attempts concealment. Reason chooses correction. When you recognize an error, acknowledge it without delay. Learn from it without self-pity. Correct what can still be corrected. This response strengthens self-respect because it demonstrates loyalty to truth above personal pride. One valuable evening practice is reviewing the moments when your conduct reflected your highest principles and the moments when it fell short. Do not conduct this examination with harshness. Conduct it with accuracy. Ask where courage was replaced by hesitation. Ask where moderation surrendered to impulse. Ask where justice gave way to impatience. Then identify one practical improvement for tomorrow. Honest reflection transforms failure into instruction rather than allowing it to become discouragement. Be especially careful during moments of fatigue or frustration. These conditions often tempt you to lower your standards. You may tell yourself that one dishonest shortcut does not matter. You may excuse unnecessary harshness because the day has been difficult. Yet character is tested precisely when maintaining virtue becomes inconvenient. Every difficult moment offers another opportunity to strengthen your respect for yourself through disciplined action. The approval of others will always remain uncertain. Some people will misunderstand your intentions despite your honesty. Others may criticize conduct that your conscience knows to be honorable. If your self-respect depends entirely upon public opinion, your peace will change with every changing voice. Build your foundation elsewhere. Let the quality of your own character become the standard against which your life is measured. This does not mean ignoring wise correction from others. Humility remains essential. Listen carefully when someone offers thoughtful criticism. Examine it honestly. Accept what reason confirms. Reject what reason cannot support. Self-respect is never threatened by learning. It is strengthened whenever truth becomes more important than protecting your pride. You will notice that discipline in one area gradually strengthens discipline in others. Keeping small commitments makes greater commitments easier to fulfill. Speaking honestly in ordinary conversations prepares you for honesty during serious challenges. Practicing patience in minor inconveniences prepares you for calm endurance during larger trials. Character grows as a unified whole because every virtue supports the others. Guard yourself against the belief that one failure destroys all progress. Such thinking often leads to unnecessary surrender. If you fall short today, return to honorable action tomorrow without delay. Do not spend unnecessary time condemning yourself. Your responsibility is not to become flawless overnight. Your responsibility is to choose reason again each time you discover you have departed from it. Another valuable exercise is intentionally performing acts of goodness that cannot increase your reputation. Help someone without expecting gratitude. Complete an unpleasant duty without announcing it. Speak kindly where no advantage can be gained. These actions strengthen self-respect because they remind your mind that virtue exists for its own sake rather than for public recognition. As the days pass, you will begin noticing subtle changes within yourself. Decisions become clearer because your priorities have become more stable. Temptations lose some of their influence because they conflict with the person you are becoming. Fear of judgment decreases because your conscience has become a more trustworthy companion than public opinion. This quiet transformation develops gradually through repeated honorable conduct rather than dramatic moments. Your relationships also improve when self-respect grows from within. You become less dependent upon constant reassurance because your worth no longer depends upon another person's approval. You become more reliable because others recognize consistency between your words and actions. Trust develops naturally around those whose character remains steady across changing circumstances. Remember that every sunrise presents another opportunity to strengthen the relationship you have with yourself. The choices awaiting you may appear ordinary, yet each one contributes something lasting. Every truthful word strengthens integrity. Every patient response strengthens moderation. Every courageous action strengthens confidence. Every just decision strengthens dignity. Nothing honorable is ever wasted because it quietly shapes the person making the choice. Do not seek shortcuts towards self-respect. There are none. Wealth cannot purchase it. Praise cannot guarantee it. Achievement cannot replace it. It grows only where disciplined action consistently agrees with disciplined judgment. This process cannot be rushed because character matures through faithful repetition rather than sudden transformation. As evening arrives, let your greatest satisfaction come from knowing that your conduct remained as close to reason as your understanding allowed. Some goals may remain unfinished, some plans may require adjustment, some outcomes may still remain uncertain. Yet if you acted with honesty, justice, courage, and moderation, your day possesses genuine success regardless of external results. Eventually you will discover that unwavering self-respect is one of the greatest forms of freedom available to a human being. It frees you from chasing endless approval because your conscience has become your primary witness. It frees you from compromising principles for temporary gain because integrity has become more valuable than convenience. It frees you from doubting your own strength because your daily actions have provided steady evidence of your character. Continue building that evidence one day at a time. Let every ordinary choice become another stone placed upon a firm foundation. Refuse to betray your own judgment for passing comfort. Remain faithful to virtue even when no reward appears immediately. In doing so, you will gradually become the kind of person whose respect cannot be granted by others or taken away by circumstances because it has been earned through the quiet and consistent practice of honorable daily actions. Number 10. Choose virtue every day and discover lasting inner happiness alone. You spend most of your life being pulled in many directions at once. One moment you chase comfort, another moment approval, another moment control over things that never fully obey you. In that constant movement, something essential is lost. You begin living as if happiness is always located somewhere ahead of you, always dependent on circumstances that have not yet arrived, always tied to outcomes you do not govern. This is how the mind becomes restless without ever realizing it has chosen restlessness through its own judgments. Virtue asks something radically different from you. It asks you to stop chasing life as if peace is hidden outside of your conduct. It asks you to place your attention on the only domain that never leaves your possession: your judgments, your choices, your actions, your refusal or willingness to act in accordance with reason. Everything else shifts without permission, but here you remain sovereign. When you forget this, you begin searching everywhere except where freedom actually lives. Most suffering begins when you treat external things as if they were essential to inner peace. You believe a certain outcome will complete you. You believe approval will stabilize you. You believe comfort will secure you. Yet every time life denies these expectations, you feel as though something has been taken from you. In truth, nothing has been taken, only your judgment has been challenged. The disturbance does not come from life refusing to cooperate. It comes from the belief that your peace depended on cooperation in the first place. You must examine this belief directly. Ask yourself how many times your mood has changed simply because reality did not follow your preference. Notice how quickly irritation appears when things move differently than expected. Observe how easily disappointment forms when others do not act as you imagined. These reactions are not caused by events themselves. They are caused by judgments you have accepted without question. Once you see this clearly, you begin to understand where your real work begins. Virtue is not an abstract ideal reserved for rare moments. It is the daily discipline of aligning your mind with reason in every situation. It is choosing honesty when deception would be easier. It is choosing patience when irritation demands immediate expression. It is choosing fairness when personal advantage tempts you otherwise. It is choosing restraint when desire urges excess. Each moment becomes a small decision about what kind of person you are willing to become. Do not mistake happiness for constant pleasure or uninterrupted ease. That is a fragile illusion that collapses the moment life becomes unpredictable. The happiness that arises from virtue is different. It does not depend on conditions remaining favorable. It depends on your conduct remaining aligned with reason. When your actions are governed by wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation, something stable appears within you. Not excitement, not constant stimulation. Something quieter and stronger. A settled mind that does not betray itself. Begin each morning with a clear understanding of what belongs to you and what does not. Your thoughts, your choices, your responses, your intentions, these are yours. Everything else belongs to conditions beyond your control. The behavior of others, the outcome of events, the timing of success or failure. When you confuse these categories, you begin demanding from life what it cannot give. When you separate them clearly, you stop wasting energy on what was never yours to command. Throughout the day, you will be tested not by dramatic events, but by small interruptions. A delay, a misunderstanding, a failure of expectation, a moment of discomfort. Each one presents the same question: will you respond according to reason or according to impulse? Impulse always seeks immediate relief. Reason seeks correct action. If you choose impulse, you may gain temporary comfort, but lose inner stability. If you choose reason, you may feel momentary discomfort, but preserve self-respect. Pay attention to how often your mind tries to negotiate with virtue. It will suggest small exceptions. It will say this situation is different. It will argue that honesty can be delayed or that patience is unnecessary this time. These arguments are not signs of intelligence. They are signs of weakness attempting to justify departure from principle. Virtue does not change based on circumstance. Either it governs your life consistently, or it does not govern it at all. You will also notice that many emotional disturbances come from wanting reality to confirm your preferences. When people agree with you, you feel calm. When they disagree, you feel unsettled. When plans succeed, you feel stable. When they fail, you feel disturbed. This pattern reveals that your peace has been tied to things outside your control. The Stoic path requires breaking this dependency by shifting the source of stability inward, toward the quality of your own judgment. There is a simple practice that begins this shift. Before reacting to any situation, pause and ask what virtue requires here, not what desire wants, not what emotion demands, what reason requires. This pause interrupts automatic reactions and creates space for choice. In that space, you begin reclaiming authority over yourself. At first, this feels unnatural because habit resists interruption, but with repetition, it becomes the foundation of a steadier life. Another practice involves reviewing your day in the evening, not to judge yourself harshly, but to observe honestly. Where did you act according to virtue? Where did you drift into impulse? Where did you speak from reason? Where did you speak from emotion? This examination transforms experience into instruction. Without it, the mind repeats the same errors without awareness. With it, each day becomes training in self-governance. Understand that no external success can compensate for internal disorder. You may achieve recognition, wealth, or influence, yet if your judgments remain unstable, peace will continue escaping you. Conversely, even in simple or difficult circumstances, a mind governed by virtue remains steady. This is why inner happiness is not distributed by fortune. It is built through discipline. Many people believe they need better circumstances to become better people. This belief reverses reality. Better circumstances do not create virtue. Virtue creates better use of circumstances. The same situation can produce anger in one person and patience in another. The difference is not external. It is the discipline of judgment. When you change how you think, you change how you experience everything that happens to you. You must also confront the habit of blaming external conditions for internal unrest. Blame appears whenever you believe peace was taken from you, yet peace is never taken. It is always abandoned through judgment. When you say something ruined your day, you reveal that your day depended on something outside your control. When you claim someone made you upset, you overlook the judgment you accepted about their actions. Responsibility returns when you recognize that your response always begins within you. As you strengthen this understanding, you will begin to notice that solitude becomes less threatening. When happiness depends on virtue rather than approval, you are no longer dependent on constant presence or validation from others. You can be alone without feeling empty because your mind is engaged in something stable. Self-examination, reasoned reflection, and deliberate action become companions that do not abandon you. This does not mean withdrawing from life. It means engaging with life without surrendering your inner authority. You can participate fully in relationships, work, and responsibility while remaining anchored in your own judgments. You listen without losing yourself. You act without losing clarity. You care without becoming dependent on outcomes. This is the balance that produces lasting inner stability. There will be moments when you forget this discipline. You will react before thinking. You will accept judgments without examination. You will allow emotion to speak before reason. Do not turn these moments into permanent defeat. Simply return to awareness. Each return strengthens your ability to remain steady in the next moment. Progress is not defined by perfection. It is defined by the speed with which you return to reason. Over time, something quiet but profound begins to form. You no longer experience happiness as something that arrives and disappears with circumstance. It becomes a steady condition rooted in how you choose to live. Acting justly brings satisfaction even when results are uncertain. Speaking truthfully brings peace even when it is not rewarded. Enduring difficulty with courage brings quiet confidence even when no one notices. This is the kind of happiness that does not rely on the approval of the world. Eventually you realize that you were never missing happiness. You were misplacing it. You had been placing it in outcomes, in reactions, in expectations, in approval, in conditions that could not hold it securely. When you return it to its rightful place within your own conduct, it stops escaping you. It becomes something you generate through every choice aligned with virtue. So choose virtue today, not as a theory but as a daily practice. In every moment where impulse speaks first, let reason speak next. In every situation where emotion rises quickly, let judgment settle it. In every decision where external pressure grows strong, return to what is yours to control: your thoughts, your choices, your actions. When these are governed well, happiness no longer depends on what happens to you. It arises from how faithfully you live according to what you know is right.